allow the two children to attend the budget every year.
It's okay. Off your mind. It's okay.
She
Off your mind. Off your mind.
like me.
Chai! Now wow, people wey suppose talk truth to power don off mic. And if we talk, now 500,000 they go sama us, call am hate speech. But fear not, Maiyegun don come. Him go torchlight every corner, nooks and cranny of all these bad people wey dey spoil our country. So my people make we loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. This one not dey off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. And in dey touchlight every corner, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Okay, some people be dey holla say dem want the power. Chai, dem be promise us say we go get light and power. Nah. Dem hustle sote they can't get the power. But now they know they do anything with the power. Sure. Every day, dollar just they get the higher power over naira. Still them talk say make we off mind. But thank God say Maiyegun don come. So my people make you loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. This one not dey off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Person wey dey do evil no wan make person talk. Them say that Maiyegun, that man too dey talk. He too dey talk. Say Maiyegun diary, he dey hot like pepper. But every day, then they take money in bulk. Woman pikin dey the street dey hawk. Still them talk say make we no talk. But thank God say Maiyegun don come. So my people make you loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. My people make you shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. This man not dey off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Maiyegun ti dé o ọ̀rẹ́ ara yìí.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Bó bá ṣe é àní Maiyegun máa wí.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Maiyegun diary politico.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Maiyegun.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Ẹ farabalẹ̀ sẹ́ o kẹgọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Àní Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Facebook
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn làjú
Maiyegun ti dé.
lórí YouTube
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn làjú
Maiyegun ti dé.
bọ́ bàbá gbé wúrẹ́
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn làjú
Maiyegun ti dé.
jíjó ìgbádìyẹ
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn làjú
Maiyegun ti dé.
pẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o
Maiyegun máa wí.
àní ẹ̀sùn làjú.
Hello there. Good morning to you. Good afternoon to you. And good evening to you from wherever you are joining us. This is brunch time with Maiyegun live. Thank you so much for joining me and for tuning in as well. After reading the caption of the broadcast, please kindly read the description as well. It's pretty much short. Like the broadcast, share it. Invite your friends, invite your not so friendly friends, your frenemies. Tell them that Maiyegun is live. And thank you if you have done that already. So the updates from the EKiti illegal court that is helping the Afe Babanla Ole's alleged defamation case against Dele Farotimi has granted Dele Farotimi a 50 million naira bail today for a non-existence crime. And that is where we are going to start this afternoon or this morning. Please share this broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the oppressors are making more and more mistakes. And as they are also helping to justify the content in the book written by Dele Farotimi, the Nigeria criminal justice system. Now, so Nigeria and its criminal justice system. I got my copy this afternoon, and I am going to be reading that on the program today. So if you have your copy, where we can read together. If you have read it, we can read it together again. This is the first time I'm actually touching the book. Therefore, if you haven't gotten yourself one, I implore you to try to, because whatever is in this book that prompted the oppressors in Nigeria to act this lawlessly, shamelessly, to the shocking surprise of the world, well, it is worth reading, brethren. Last week, Dele Farotimi was kidnapped from his office in Lagos. His staff were assaulted, were slapped by criminal police officers sent from EKiti State to Lagos. And this was like after 7 months of the publication of this book, Afe Babanla Ole and the judicial establishment in Nigeria somehow just woke up last week to what they called the destructive content published by Dele Farotimi. A lot of people who never knew about this book, because of this action, they have prompted them to go and get themselves a copy. In fact, it has become the bestseller book on Amazon or any book at all being sold, even in Nigeria as we speak. Tens of thousands of it has been ordered by different people all over the world, including Maiyegun General on this platform. Defamation is not a crime. or a criminal offense, it is a civil case. It should never have involved the Nigerian police. But when they kidnapped Dele Farotimi in Lagos and then smuggled him to EKiti, the Ronukus were happy that finally, yes, finally, they have gotten him. In fact, they were looking forward to seeing him being jailed on what we now call not prosecution, but persecution. But Dele Farotimi was pretty much like ahead of them. He told us what was cooking, what they planned to do, how they planned to execute this evil agenda of theirs of shutting him up. But they were late. Like I said, he already alerted us. And just exactly the way he projected them, he prophesied, is exactly where they have been acting. Ape Babanlaoli, a roguish criminal lawyer, is not like a criminal lawyer, like the lawyer that is fighting crime. No. He's a criminal that is also a lawyer. It has been shielded for so long. And because of this singular act of abducting, kidnapping Dele Farotimi in Lagos, has prompted a lot of us to start digging and digging deep on who is Afe Babalola. And it is not just Afe Babalola. Now, if you have heard about Ironi Pekun, the guy who stood in for Tifnumbu that defended the druggie during the tribunal and then the presidential tribunal cases up to the Supreme Court. These are a bunch of criminals who are parading themselves as lawyers. There have been those who have paid millions of dollars, not naira, millions of dollars in bribes to Nigerian judges. They have them on their fingertips. They controlled what happened in Nigeria judiciary, who gets what and when and why. So because of this, they are revered. They are called revered legal luminaries, but they are a bunch of criminals. So Dele Farotimi, who encountered a few of them, decided to tell the generation yet unborn, just in case when they are born, they will no longer be deceived that they are heroes past. I mean, these criminals are heroes in the past. They are not heroes. They are a bunch of criminals who have been hibernating in the corrupt judicial system of Nigeria. The reason why the criminal politicians in Nigeria have been able to escape justice is no other reason than the likes of Ironi Pekun, the likes of Afe Babanlaoli, and many, many like them. Some of them are dead. Some of them are still alive. In fact, they pride themselves as the father of justice in Nigeria, but they are actually the fathers of injustice, corruption, malfeasance, oppression in Nigeria, lawlessness. You see, the lawlessness that Nigeria represents today, the Nigerian society, there are those who are the shapers of that. And Afe Babanlaoli, a 95-year-old legal criminal, is like at the top of the food chain. So when Dele Farotimi wrote this book, a lot of people who got the book at the earlier stage, they were worried for him. You sure that you are not going to cut a bigger problem like this? You are a lawyer. And nothing that Dele Farotimi wrote in his book that a typical lawyer in Nigeria is not aware of. The shadiness, the corruption in Nigerian judiciary. There is no practicing lawyer in Nigeria that does not know it. There is no lawyer in Nigeria. But some of them are acting brand new. They are quoting non-existing laws of defamation, libel. Now, if anybody defames you, it is not a police case to start with, except if it affects the establishment. Defamation is not a criminal offense in Nigeria. In fact, if for any reason anyone is convicted of a defamation and they are to be imprisoned, their imprisonment is under 2 years or under 3 years, between 6 months and 2.5 years. That is to tell you that most of it is usually about fine. They will tell you to go and pay fine. But these guys knows that They were supposed to be legal luminaries. They didn't pursue this issue on a legal front. Rather, the oppressive system, which after Babalaole himself at some point condemned. How many of you remember when the Nigerian Daura Secret Service, DSS, invaded the judges' quarters and arrested them, accused them of corruption, that they found tens of thousands of dollars, pounds in their safes, in their homes. After Babalaole was one of those who was like, this was an attack on the judiciary. How could you go in there? Like, if you have any allegation against them, the right thing to do is to invite them. This is the state versus this was the Bokwari versus Nigerian judges. So, and it was the preparation for 2019 so that they could know how to remove all the judges that they felt like will not work for Bokwari's planned rigging in 2019. So this man condemned that. But in 2024, he used the same police to kidnap a fellow lawyer. Some of these guys are calling him our father, our father, our father kill you there. A rogue that has been fingered in manipulating judgments for criminal politicians, governors, senators, even presidents in Nigeria, says that this book has ruined his reputation. But the reputation built on lies, reputation built on falsehood, reputation built on corruption, reputation built on impunity. That is not reputation. That is a crime hidden for so long. And thank God he lived long enough to see this so fake reputation shattered to pieces. So Afe Babalaole is a coward, a rogue, that is so, a coward, a rogue, that is so afraid of his own shadow that he had to hide behind the police. At first, EKiti police that kidnapped Dele Farotimi, they took Dele Farotimi to magistrate court to prosecute a criminal case against a supposed federal criminal case against somebody who doesn't live in Ekiti State. In Ekiti State that doesn't have any law against defamation to start with. So they realized so late, because they had to do it so horribly. They realized that this was a mistake. So they called Abuja. That was when Igbetokun, the police IG, dabbled straight into it. And he didn't jump into it by himself. Now, this is where it became very much interesting. Tifnumbu and his gang, they have been looking for ways to get Dele Farotimi for so long. But when the opportunity now presented itself to them, these dullards, these lawless rogues, what did they do? They decided to turn defamation to cyber stalking, cyber bullying, cyber crime. And they have no correlation. But just because they felt like, you know what? Afe Babalaole is a coward hiding somewhere in Ibadan or somewhere in Ekiti. That a lawyer that has been a lawyer for 60 years, according to them, but he's so afraid of a young lawyer who has only been practicing law for less than 30 years. Half of the time he's been a lawyer himself, working for criminals in Nigeria, shielding them from law, shaping the whole legal system, judiciary of Nigeria to be for the highest bidder, like you have it today, right? So he's hiding somewhere, writing press releases, but not bold enough to sue Dele Farotimi directly. So the police IG now took over the case by accusing Dele Farotimi of harassing Afe Babalola, cyber stalking Afe Babalola. And this too is a sham. However, last week, the Ekiti Magistrate Court said Dele Farotimi should be remanded in prison until the 10th of December, which is tomorrow. But the police IG's own is now a federal case in Ekiti, Federal High Court, right? But that was supposed to happen today. So eventually, they put up police, not Afe Babalola versus Dele Farotimi, but police IG versus Dele Farotimi, police IG. This has nothing to do with the police, oh. But because Nigeria is a corrupt system that Dele Farotimi wrote about, so which justifies that. But in order to these power-drunk criminals in position of authority in Nigeria to feel good about themselves, look at what they did. They put cuffs in the hands of Dele Farotimi. They handcuffed him, bringing him to court. But the same criminals in Nigeria who once brought this guy, this looter on the right, Yeye Bello, this guy stole 110 billion naira from EKiti State. But it looks like he's the one who took the EFCC to court. Look at him, flexing, because that is what Nigeria represents. The man on the left is Dele Farotimi, the man that exposed the corrupt judiciary of Nigeria, is in handcuffs. So that tells you all you need to know. So what then happened? The police IG versus Dele Farotimi in EKiti Federal High Court today. They finally agreed that Dele Farotimi should be granted bail on defamation case. It's not even defamation now. It is harassment, cyberbullying, cyber stalking of a private individual. This is not a government agent. Afe Babanlaole is not in government too. This is not Afe Babanlaole versus Dele Farotimi. This is police IG as a police institution against the private citizen on what was supposed to be the disagreement or so between two private citizens. But we get the message, we do. So what did their judge say? They said that Dele Farotimi, who has committed no crime, no single crime, is to go and pay 50 million naira. Not just that. They said that his surety must also pay 50 million naira. In fact, I have the list of what they said must be paid for Dele Farotimi to be freed or on bail. They have adjourned their own case. That is the federal one now, police IG. Having realized that the magistrate's case is no case, is useless. And it's just going to be a matter of time before everybody will realize this abuse of power. So they shifted it to the federal. So Dele Farotimi was supposed to still be in prison till tomorrow, but they had to bring him out today. With these conditions, as his bail condition, is to pay 50 million naira, right? As a bail bond. Then one surety. That surety must be a resident in EKiti. That surety must have 3 years tax clearance. That surety, must have a built-up property within EKiti. That person must have property built in EKiti. The surety is to deposit title deed. That is the title deed of his property in EKiti. He must submit it to the registrar of the courts. They say that the surety must present 4 recent passport photographs. And also, the surety must present 4 pictures while standing. Yeah, he must take a selfie. No, is that selfie? He must take a full picture of himself, 4, and submit 4 passport photographs. 4 full picture of the surety must be submitted to the registrar. Dele Farotimi must submit his international passport to the registrar of the court. Of the court. These are the conditions given. Did Farotimi see this coming? Of course he did. And during the time of signing his book, to those who the first edition of the book, early this year, this year, Dele Farotimi said to the hearing of everybody,
I am conscious of exactly what kind of country I live in. But it used to be my belief that as crazy as we might be, that there is still something that must undergird our system. And that is the sanctity of law. I used to believe that even if the High Court judges maybe a few might be corrupt, and I knew a few who were. Maybe 1 or 2 Court of Appeal justices might be amenable to pressure, but I never believed that an entire system would be subverted in pursuance of narrow interest until 2013. But I'll let the book speak for itself. But It is of critical importance that this book be written, and I will explain why. I worry about the society that we have built, that we are building, and that we are likely to bequeath to the next generation. I have tried my best to be faithful to the truth. I have allowed the truth to be the sole bridle for my pen, and I have written believing in the complete truthfulness of each and every word that I have put in that book. But the truth needs to be told. So what I have done for my children. I have done for my conscience. I have done my own bit. Let them do their own bit. Hopefully they find the grace to adhere to the rule of law. Thank you very much. I am conscious of exactly what
DF Dele Farotimi. And on that note, we shall we read the content that triggered the establishment in Nigeria. 7 months after the publication of the book. 4 months after Dele Farotimi spoke about the book. And right now, the entire system says this book has destroyed Afe Babanla Ole's reputation. This book has destroyed the reputation of the Nigerian judiciary. But as we all know, there is no lawyer in Nigeria that would dispute the content of this book. There is no lawyer in Nigeria because they do know how corrupt the judiciary is in Nigeria. Ordinary folks knows how corrupt the judiciary is in Nigeria. Now, if they suddenly just turn around and feel like somebody writing about it comprehensively is defaming them, they shouldn't use the police. They are lawyers. They are yabi. The writing is to what? It is their terrain. It is their turf. It's the right thing to do is what? To sue him. And he already challenged them. Sue me. Do not use the police and all that like you normally do to oppress, because you control the system in a way. And to those of you who are a little bit worried or angry that Dele Farotimi was cuffed by these criminals, don't worry. They have actually put more credence to Dele Farotimi's book. That's what they have done. It is obvious. How can you handcuff somebody for defamation? You are not handcuffing thieves. You are not handcuffing terrorists. You did not handcuff the treasury looters. You handcuff somebody, you claim to have defamed somebody. That tells it all. So if you have the time, I advise you to sit back, relax, and then listen. And if you have your own copy, I advise you to bring it out now. Let's read together. What triggered the establishment? This looks like what can be finished within a day or two. But because I am going to take calls at some point, the book is of 86 pages. So that's not more than what we can finish in a sitting, but we can do it twice. You understand? So I'm going to start this afternoon. If you have your copy, like I said, you should please bring it out. And I intend to read as, as rhythmically as possible. If I'm going too fast, you have a chance to remind me and say, Maiyegun, slow down. I usually don't read that fast anyway. So here is the first quote set in quote. The law as and the powers of the state have become perverted with it. The law has been perverted and not only been turned from its proper function, but made to follow an entirely contrary purpose. The law has become a tool for every kind of greed. Instead of preventing crime, the law itself is guilty of the abuses it is supposed to punish. If this is true, it is a serious matter, and the moral duty requires me to call the attention of my fellow citizen to it. Frederick Bastiat in the law. So Dele Farotimi's acknowledgement. This book is to his wife. For Olufumilayo, the one who constantly gives me peace, love, and happiness. Thanks for everything. So the foreword in this book goes thus. This is not a biography, for I have painstakingly provided glimpses of my early life in an earlier sequel to my first book. My purpose here is to tell you the story of my sojourn within the Nigerian legal system and to show you how our justice system, the Nigerian justice system, is in itself criminal, lending credence to how the criminality of the judiciary is completely reflective of the Nigerian state in its full ramifications and with full evidence of how this rot, having become systemic, is insidious and reaches to the very top of the judicial system. I will tell you the story of the complete and total loss of the capacity to deliver justice against the backdrop of a case that was decided by the Supreme Court and which records are in the public domain. I speak specifically of the case of Major Muritala Gbadamoshi and HRH, His Royal Highness Oba Tijani Akinloye, and ORS, otherwise known as the Gbadamoshi Eletu case. It is my contention regarding this case, one, that Are Afe Babalola corrupted the Supreme Court to procure a fraudulent judgment in the service of his clients. Two, that the law firm of SB Joseph and Co. procured a warrant to execute the said judgment by doctoring the original judgment of the Supreme Court. Three, that Atilade O Justice at the time and the administrative judge of Lagos Judicial Division unlawfully issued a warrant of execution based on the doctored judgment and without the enrolled order of the Supreme Court. Four, that Atilade J quashed the fraudulently obtained warrant following an application of counsel in protest against same. Five, that Are Afe Babalola, Oludaramola, Olufaro, and the law offices of the Afe Babalola and Co. Emmanuel Chambers compromised the Supreme Court and the remaining semblance of integrity it might have had when they went back to the Supreme Court and got that court to swim in the sewer of corruption and shameful self-abnegation. Six, that Lawal Pedro San, at the material time, the Solicitor General of Lagos State, corrupted himself, abandoned the interest of the state, its citizens, and any pretense to decency, and became the undisclosed attorney to the Eletu family, thus betraying the public trust. Seven, that Afe Babalola libeled me, and the fact of the libel became known to me in his suit against Lawal Pedro San. 8, that I sued Afe Babalola San for libel, and that he leveraged his influence in the judiciary to deny me justice. 9, that Oyekon Abdullahi J was the instrument of injustice employed to deny me my day in court. 10, that the Nigerian justice system is criminal and complicit and can therefore not uphold the tenet of true justice, nor the dispense thereof to which it is sworn. The story I intend to tell is wrapped around the above facts and have been carefully espoused to highlight only the facts of the matter. After all, of what use is a lawyer without his facts. And here is the preface. I do not know Justice Ariwola as a person, but I am familiar with his work, having been connected with a case he was involved with. And I can say this as a fact, that I don't expect anything substantial to change in relation to justice delivery, because one of the most violent injustices I've ever seen coming out of that Supreme Court came from a panel on which this particular justice sat twice. The case is Badamoshi Eletu versus Akinloye. It is one of the most unusual cases I've ever seen in my life, where the Supreme Court turned itself into a mathematician, subtracting and dividing land and deciding on a property that was not before it. So, when it comes to expecting any justice from that court, I don't expect any. Not because of his person, and already regarding his person. As far as I'm concerned, it is either he is incompetent or he is corrupt. It is one or the other. These are grievous allegations, and I am making them carefully. For when it comes to the issue of justice delivery, I do not believe that anything will change. When you begin to deal with technicalities of the rules of court, administration of courts, well, maybe he might perform some magic in that regard, but insofar as it relates to delivery of justice, I expect nothing. I was a guest on the Arise TV morning show. I was out of the country in the United States. My friend and brother, Guru, had just picked me up from the airport in Washington, D.C. on my arrival on holiday from Nigeria. When I received the call from TV station, and I had to wake in the middle of the American night, still largely suffering from my jet lag, to take the interview by Zoom. We had covered a range of issues and were nearing the end of the interview session when Dr. Ruben Abati asked what he must have believed to be an innocuous question. But he was asking my opinion on the recent appointment of the then acting CJN, Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kayode Ariwola. The above was my response. The interview was conducted on the 20th day of June 2022. The proceeding is necessary in order to save my would-be interlocutors, persecutors, and beneficiaries of this decadent system and its defenders the time and energy that they might waste on my attempt at ad hominem attacks. My position precedes my involvement with the Peter Obi presidential campaign, and my exertion are completely non-partisan. Furthermore, this manuscript has been ready for publication since May 2023. But I have deliberately waited until after the Supreme Court's decision on the presidential election matters had been announced before deciding to publish. This I have done in order to ensure that the question of partisanship is not allowed to become a distraction for those interested in the pursuit of truth and justice in Nigeria. I wanted to ensure that this effort is not tainted with accusation of partisanship. I need us to be focused on the issue, the utter uselessness and unfitness for purpose of the Nigerian judiciary. I went to the law school with a Christian gentleman. He went to university in the UK. He was older than me, but we were cordial with each other, and I had a lot of respect for him. His wife and children were still in England when he was one of the first set of students admitted into the wilderness. That was the Nigerian law school. Buhari. His story in it is his to tell, if he cares to tell it, but I am obliged to share the part that is relevant to my story. We shall name him Titus, but that is not his name. Titus was the model student. He was in all the classes, tutorials, and dinners. It was always black and white, a penguin. The MIB have nothing on Titus. And what's more, he was one of the leaders of his fellowship. Titus aced his exams, like particularly everyone in that exceptional foundation class at the Buhari Law School, and probably still holding the record for the highest percentage of passes. But the Council of Legal Education decided it would not be calling this model lawyer to the bar. It was measured by these upright men and women, and they had determined that he had fallen short of their lofty standards. In fulfilling the form required of every student applying to be admitted into the bar, Titus had disclosed that he was convicted on a misdemeanor, one that had since been expunged from his record by operations of law and a fluxion of time. He, being a Christian and a born-again leader of fellowship, a man of faith, integrity, and good conscience, he made full disclosure of a past he had no obligation to reveal, and it was shown exactly how un-Nigerian he had become and was deemed unfit for the Nigerian bar. I don't know if he has been admitted to the bar today, but the Nigerian legal system is poorer by the hypocrisy of his non-admittance, and he is owed a debt of apologies by all concerned with his fate. I am under no illusion about what has befallen our country and its judiciary, but it is the duty of those who are blessed to be able to speak the truth to speak. The Nigerian judiciary is the exact same as the Nigerian police, customs, the immigration, and every other part of our portrayed society. Àìsàn tó ń ṣe ẹgbẹ̀fà náà ló ń ṣe ọ̀ọ́dúnrún. Àìsàn tó ń ṣe abọ́yadé gbogbo lọ́ya ni ó ń ṣe. What afflicts one is evidence of what is common to all. There are no parts of the Nigerian state that have been spared by the evil that has overtaken our land. I have set out to show you the extent of the decadence, corruption, and impunity that have overtaken our country. And in doing this, I have ensured that I am fastidious about telling the truth. I have absolutely no problem with meeting every single writ that anyone might care to issue for libel, and the evidence of the truth that I have told are largely in the court's record. The last hope of the common man in Nigeria is lost, and the CJN might as well prescribe the removal of the colonial wig and decree that every judge should adorn the Tinubu cap in his stead. The Nigerian judiciary is the foundation of the impunity that has overtaken our country, and it must be redeemed before we might be able to regain our liberties first as human beings and then as citizens. By some miracle that is uniquely Nigerian, we have managed to evolve a criminal justice system. The tragedy, however, is that it is the system itself that is criminal, and the ones who should be citizens have become victims in the vice grips of a three-pronged system. The executive is helmed by a man who is everything that should be nowhere near the office, but then he is the sum of the part of each and every one of his predecessors. The legislative branch is largely peopled by the most myopic collection of humanity, persons unyoked to vision, sybaritic cretins, focused on consumptions, and they are completely uninterested in the plight of the people. The Trinity is completed by the judiciary, and it is of the judiciary that I write in this book. The truth has become transactional in our country, and in its transactional form has equally assumed the toga of subjectivity, where every single truth has to pass through the test of subjectivity before it might be accepted as truth. But I am comforted by the knowledge that the truth is the only weapon that is capable of slaying Nigerian monster. In weaving this narrative, I have maintained a strict fidelity to the truth. I challenged each and every one of the men and women who have been named to point out any lies that I might have told once they are done with the ad hominem attacks. If Nigeria must be saved, it will be because we found the grace to face the truth of the many lies that we have told ourselves and that we have collectively promoted. What we have managed to build with our lies is a judiciary that is very much us. It is built in the image of the Nigerian state. It mirrors our police, customs, and other institutions of our failing state. Our judiciary is completely Nigerian. There is nothing of the bastard in the men and women peopling our criminal justice system, but it is the system itself that's criminal. And it is the practitioners from the registrars, so to we, the lawyers and the judges that are generally criminal. The Nigerian judiciary is not the hope of the common man, but is in truth completely hopeless and unfit for purpose. Pretty much a mirror of everything Nigeria. This is the foreword, put it that way. Sorry, the preface. Now we have the introduction. We haven't started the book yet, though. So you can see why Tifnumbu and his gang are involved now. Because this book also pointed to their roles and beneficiary in this rot, from this rot called Nigeria judicial system. A drug dealer, a former drug baron, heroin trafficker is the president of Nigeria. And Nigerian judiciary, Nigerian senior advocate of nuisance, all these lawyers, they defended the criminal, a certificate forger, and he is today the president of Nigeria. That tells you all you need to know about the Nigerian judiciary. But let's continue. Introduction to this book. Some years back, I wrote an essay titled, "I Do Not Write for You." I dealt with the issue of writing for a people who have demonstrated an inability to understand the concept of public accountability and who have proven themselves incapable of connecting the dots or understanding cause and effect. Nothing has changed since I wrote that piece, and I find myself saying to my readers even now, I do not write for you. The Nigerian legal system is completely lost. It is not capable of self-regulating itself, and it is beyond redemption in the absence of a systemic regeneration that is founded on a moral revolution within the Nigerian state itself. The judiciary is reflective of the society in which it exists, and to be fair to the judiciary and its functionaries, they are representative of what values the society holds dear. The Nigerian state is feudal state. It has no room for the niceties of citizenship, the rule of law, nor democracy. The state requires that some people be above the law, whilst others must be kept underfoot. In the complete absence of the rule of law, a most perverse system has emerged that mimics the substance, but which is shorn of it. The police have no power to enforce the laws, and they, in the absence of that, enforce the reign of impunity. The courts are obliged to pretend that the law rules, but in reality, they have little choice but to interpret the laws with subjective content. The system of administration of impunity has assured that members of the ruining class, we call them ruining class, are rarely ever held to account for their serial crimes against the victims of their misrule. But the victims are never spared the harshness of the laws devoid of equity. The law enforcement agencies, from the police to the multiple paramilitary forces, are clear about the persons to whom the laws may apply, and these are almost always the underclass and victims of the Nigerian state. The affluent and connected are rarely ever apprehended for their crimes, but the poor are routinely victimized. When the rich are taken before the court, it is almost always because of some internecine warfare within the ranks of the privileged. And when this happens, they have demonstrated an uncanny ability to find the capacity to exploit multiple ways of escaping the consequences of their actions. Corruption has become a special class of offenses that is increasingly the exclusive preserve of the rich and powerful. And almost all cases in this class ends with some plea bargain and or the filing of nolle prosequis, no prosecution. The poor, on the other hand, is never able to catch a break. There are persons in our prisons that have absolutely no business with being there. And it has become the standard fare that justice is for the rich, whilst judgment are often for the poor. In 2017, I was hauled before Dada J of the Ikeja Division of the Lagos State High Court by the EFCC. My offense? I had stood surety for a member of my then church, and the ingrates absconded. The EFCC, which had turned itself into a debt collection agency, proceeded against me with extreme prejudice. It had no interest whatsoever in the facts and or circumstances of the case, but was completely focused on ensuring that I paid the debt owed by the woman and her company to the bank. I witnessed the case unfold as I was also being tried. The EFCC was prosecuting a young woman and a co-accused. The woman had been apprehended at the British High Commission. She had presented forged documents in pursuit of her visa application, and her co-accused person, an aspiring travel agent, was the procurement officer responsible for the forged documents. By some orchestration, the case will usually be heard on the same day as mine. It was always heard before my case would be heard. The young woman had lost hope in Nigeria and was looking to flee from the country of her birth by any means necessary. The travel agent was just looking to earn a living by any means possible. The two were eventually found guilty and sentenced to prison term by the ever-diligent Dada, the prosecutorial judge who sits atop the Special Offense Court in Ikeja, Special Offenses Court in Ikeja. Sentence was imposed in their case the very same day. When Kemi Adeosun, the then finance minister, was paying the price for the palace intrigue that saw her leave her office on account of her having forged an NYSC exemption certificate. Same crime, different outcomes. The Nigerian judiciary has no justice to dispense and has evolved to become a part of the putrefaction that has overtaken the land. I do not write this book for you, but I write to inform the coming generations that not all of us are complicit in the mess that has been made of our country, for which we are all paying a hefty price. Brethren, we shall now go into the chapters of this book. And that's going to be the first chapter. Chapter 1. The truth, or should I say truth, dies in darkness. Nigeria is a very dark country, and we are in a particularly dark place as a nation. The Nigerian state is maintained by an inequitable system that is scaffolded by injustice, and the system is allergic to the supremacy of the law. The long years of military dictatorship have destroyed the appointive system of filing judicial positions refined in the early days of our independence, and the judges appointed by the soldiers and prompted by the inheritors have reached the heights of judicial offices. The Nigerian judiciary has since become completely immersed in the purulent practices of Nigeria and has become everything Nigerian. The truth teller invents nothing. It does nothing innovative either. It just tells the truth, pared down to the bones. When a land is as dark as Nigeria, and the very foundation of that land are found on lies, the truth teller becomes the outlier, one that is despised, persecuted, victimized, and sometimes outrightly eliminated or destroyed. The Nigerian state and its governing systems, including its force, the FRAP, is very adroit at all of the above and possess a superabundant arsenal of state mischief, which it very often deploys, sometimes without provocation, and many times without let. I am, however, happy to say, bring it on. Men, however powerful, are not God. I like that. The truth dies in darkness. A careful deconstruction of the short sentence would suggest that truth is akin to light. If the truth lives, darkness cannot coexist. And it is up to the truth to light up the darkness that is suggestive of evil. There are times in the history of men and nations when important than our own lives, I'll take that again. When the purpose, personal or corporate, becomes more important than our own lives. The truth of the putrefaction of our country, as typified by the stinking corruption of the judiciary, is urgent and by far more important than my personal convenience and or life. If I must self-immolate for you to behold the extent of the wrath, so be it. But I urge you, my dear audience, not to allow my sacrifice to be made in vain. I am introducing no evidence that isn't already in the public domain and in the full view of everybody that we care to check. However contemptuous they have become, or our collective intellect and commitment to the truth. Chapter 2, Beginnings. I have been known to blithely declare that I was born a lawyer, and whilst, this is interesting, so I'll take that again. I have been known to blithely declare that I was born a lawyer, and whilst being the insufferable brat that I could be, when amongst my family and friends, nobody has ever cared to dispute my unargued submission. I will seize this opportunity offered by this narrative to argue the conclusion I have never been asked to prove. Inolende, Oniyanrin, Omitowoju, Odeolo, Mokola. These are the streets of my youth, the dusty lanes and back roads that I walked as a child. My maternal grandfather's house is located at Inolende in Ibadan, and my first steps were taken in his home. And it was there that I found my voice and knew myself. Inolende shaped my life and my very world view. SF Olukole, Samuel Faleke Olukole, SF, to his friends and cronies, whispered in a mixture of awe and jest by his wives, children, and tenants. His most senior wife was my grandmother, the one that was truly my mother, Maami, Mama Agba, the most senior of his 4 wives. But in truth, the second, his first wife, having left him before he married my grandmother, who had also left her first husband. He was a strong man, but she was an even stronger woman. a fact that I have had reinforced to me by my own acknowledgement of the superiority of my wife's capacities as compared with mine. With Bahami's collection of wives came the inevitable management issues, which were particularly exacerbated by the fact that the last two wives, Bahami Elero and the Yayemi, were both relatively young and considered themselves rivals. The court to Ashipa conducted informally around Bahami's open wood stove, the Aharo, next to Yayemi, the favored wife, and her immediate neighbor upstairs. The delicate balance she maintained between remaining objective and truthful without taking sides and without offending her husband's favorite wife is very last. I had mastered the art of being invincible in plain sight from my childhood. The Yoruba culture of my days revered age, and the young was to be seen but not heard. I learned to become invincible. Living with my grandmother, Mahami never required words to speak to me or with me. Her coughs had meanings. The way she inclined her head, her gaze, a frown, a wink, we were telepathic in our communications, and I knew better than to speak except when asked a question that required an answer. I was the essential Omo Oduagba. If Mahami was unbothered by my presence, others knew better than to query her judgments, and I earned the right to sit at gatherings where my peers were not allowed once their presence was noticed. I watched disputes settled within the family. I witnessed matrimonial causes involving uncles and aunts. I watched, I learned, and I became convinced that the pursuit of justice is foundational to the Yoruba culture and civilization. My family's compound at Inolende is a complex comprising of a sprawling single-story building, around which is wrapped a warren of rooms that form the perimeter walls. There is a frontage where we would gather at night, where cars were parked and the goats would have slept, chickens gone to roost, and where mats would be laid when the nights were hot or the moon was out. There we would gather to listen to tales told by the moonlight. Inolende was home to 8 to 10 other families, tenant of my grandfather, whole families, mothers, fathers, children, Igbo, Yoruba, Ijo, Isoko, a United Nations of sorts. Add 4 landladies into the mix, and the landlord's children and grandchildren. My grandfather ran a tight ship. He rarely got involved in the details. He trusted my grandmother as the senior and the oldest wife to adjudicate the everyday issues that arose from having so many people in the little space whenever the squabbling denizens failed to do so without intervention. The fact that she was scrupulously honest and unbiased in deciding these disputes brought to her enhanced her credibility and cloaked her with respect. I grew up watching and learning how the only way to perpetuate justice is to do unto others exactly as we would have them do unto us. I learned the value of self-respect as the very foundation of all respects, and how to tell the truth, unafraid of the consequences that men might deem themselves obliged to impose. Aki wisibe, kakusibe. Nobody dies from speaking the truth. I learned that at the root of Yoruba culture lies an abiding fidelity to the truth. I also learned that the first thing to reference is temperance, to ensure that you always stood in step with the truth. However old the adversary, however powerful it might be, whatever authority it might possess, if you had the truth on your side, the Yoruba traditional authorities, religious and spiritual, are obliged to stand behind you. To do otherwise is to betray the essence of who they are, to be debased, corrupted, and perverse. It is not for nothing that white is the symbol of Yoruba spirituality, with the undying lamp and the seeing eye at the peak of all. And then there was the picture, black and white. It's white, quite startling. A studio shot of a vibrant young man in repose, Baba's oldest child, my uncle, born to the first wife and half-brother to my mother. Everyone spoke of him with reverence. He was dressed in the full regalia of the barrister at law, pin-stripped pants, bewigged and all. He was the one who had read all the books. His portrait had the place of pride, and Baba's pride was easy and infectious. Daddy Potter was the model to which all must aspire if they were to be deemed of consequence in the Olukole clan. You might want to blame my childhood resolve to study law on him, but I would argue that he isn't to blame. The earliest thoughts of what I would do with my life were from my days at Abadino Primary School in UI. I fell in love with books and the serenity of the university campus, and I wanted to be a professor of theater arts, write and just read. I had pictures of myself forever surrounded by the ethereal beauties of Queen Elizabeth's Hall that I often gawked at. These were not the Mahamis of Inolende at all. I was admitted into Fiditi Grammar School in 1978, and whilst there, my innate flair for language and current affairs were starting to bud and ripen. I had begun to toy with the idea of reading political science and becoming a journalist. Somewhere in my head, however, I was decided that I would then pursue a degree in law. I believe that wanting to read law at the then University of Ife has something to do with the confusion experienced at the time. The University of Ife wouldn't admit anyone to read law without a first degree in those days. But before I was out of my teenage years and after I had wasted 3 years before being qualified for admission, and even after being admitted into the university, I had settled my mind on reading law. Please pay attention to my deliberate choice of the word. I read law. I studied law. I qualified as a lawyer. These things are required for me to be deemed a lawyer in law, but these were insufficient to make me a lawyer. I was born a lawyer. As I became more aware and conscious of myself, and long before my eventual admission to study law in LASU, I had settled on law as a calling. Law ticked each and every last one of the boxes of my youthful romantic views of life. I could read, write, act, even lecture as a lawyer, and I got to learn what laws to obey and which should be ignored. Sitting at Mami's feet, I had heard her repeat ad nauseam, "Ẹjọ́ là ń kọ́, ẹnìkan kì í kọjá." You must retain the temperance and calm to avoid losing your temper and avoid being blamed in the event of the inevitable disputations that attend daily coexistence. That will be the general interpretation, but it will be misleading to interpret in this light. Preceding the admonition would have been the reminder that served as a rebuke, that you should have talked instead of fought, and that any fight should be purely defensive to be justifiable. Yorubas are culturally disposed to polite, respectful, and reasoned disputations, and our very civilization is found on reasoning. I was born a lawyer. I read law in order to know the law, but I did not require either the Greek or anyone else to teach me the values of equity, equality before the law, powers and the responsibilities that come with wielding it. judicial and spiritual powers being at the apex of it all. I am fortunate to have read law in LASU at the time I did. I was blessed to have been taught by a lot of resourceful women and men, scholars who took pride in their own scholarship and hard work, men who had to think on their feet and make do with little or nothing, pioneering spirits, men for whom teachings was as much about learning as it was about teaching. There was Dr. Susu to teach the law of thought, the fatherly dean, Professor Yerokun. There was my tormentor, Professor Mike Ikariale, my brother and friend, the erudite Professor Festus Emiri, son, and many more caring, loving, and dedicated teachers, including the immediate past Vice Chancellor, Professor Lanre Fagbon, son. There were, of course, the outliers, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, son, for one, and then there was I.O. Smith, aka 1.0 Smith, a testament to the commonality of the lowest pass grade as the norm in his course. I was blessed to have been taught by a motley crew of geniuses. I am, before anything else, a Nigerian. I am not a shrinking violet and nobody's saint. I have done whatever I have needed to do in order to advance my client's interest in the past, but I have always been careful to play within the rules. I have always had a lot of admiration for professionals of all hues who have the dexterity to practice their trade profitably within the constraints of the Nigerian space. The same government that wouldn't be seen investing in social housing or public infrastructure would presume to regulate the contractual relationship that exists between a landlord and his tenants. I look at the laws and my knowledge of the reality of how long it takes to evict the debtor-tenant guides the decision. I have a novel clause inserted in every tenancy agreement I have drafted in my practice. It grants the landlord the right of re-entry in cases of default of rent and after issuance of a 7 days notice. This is legal, why it's been unlawful, but it has worked like magic over the years. Professor Smith had taught me ad nauseam that possession is ownership, and that in every claim related to real estate, my priority must always be narrowed in scope. I must always be to take possession. Everything else must flow from that. The only time we invoke the clause to evict a tenant from a client's property in Ikoyi, I happily received the writ for damages and promptly counterclaimed for the outstanding rent and the mercenary profits. This is like legal term. Now, who no fee pay rent, go pay lawyer with a question mark. We're happy enough to meet him in court and have him out of the property. He abandoned his claim. I am not a saint. I am a Nigerian, and I will gladly shake body for the policeman demanding my expired license, to the government officials to do the work for which I am taxed, and to the one installed at one of the several unlisted toll gates. I am a Nigerian, and I know what to do to get what I need. I also happen to generally clued in enough to be able to successfully navigate our shark-invested waters. This was the illusory cocoon in which I existed. I have always been familiar with the fact of our perversion as a people, and I have few illusions about equity and justice reigning in Nigeria. But I had always assumed that there were lines that should never be crossed. I was, however, slapped awake by the brazenness of the judicial brigandage unleashed on hapless citizens, corporates, and individuals by the Nigerian Supreme Court, acting under the direction of Are Afe Babalola. At least 5 justices of the Apex Court have been identified as guilty of odious corruption and or gross incompetence. Either is sufficient to have them removed from their office. And this is my petition to the Nigerian people, and most definitely to the NJC, Nigerian Judicial Commission. That's the NJC, right? A true lawyer never loses a case, for he is, if the truth be discerned, a minister in the temple of justice. And that is the cause that he or she must serve. As long as he has done his best professional duty, he is absolved of the obligation to take any side. He, in fact, has a duty to the court that is not discharged by any protestation of professional duty to the client. The lawyer is a servant of the court, a waiter in the temple of justice, an attendant to the blind priests and the priestesses that serves the blind goddess of justice. At least, justice either wins or loses. The lawyer is at all times a servant of the court. Chapter 3. I want to take a tea break. Just a tea break. Catch my breath. And then we'll go on to the chapter 3 before we stop it. A quick one.
I am conscious of exactly what kind of country I live in. But it used to be my belief that as crazy as we might be, that there is still something that must undergird our system. And that is the sanctity of law. I used to believe that even if the High Court judges maybe a few might be corrupt, and I knew a few who were. Maybe one or two Court of Appeal justices might be amenable to pressure, but I never believed that an entire system would be subverted in pursuance of narrow interest until 2013. But I'll let the book speak for itself. But it is of critical importance that this book be written, and I'll explain why. I worry about the society that we have built, that we are building, and that we are likely to bequeath to the next generation. I have tried my best to be faithful to the truth. I have allowed the truth to be the sole bridle for my pen, and I have written believing in the complete truthfulness of each and every word that I have put in that book. But the truth needs to be told. So what I have done for my children. I have done for my conscience. I have done my own bit. Let them do their own bit. Hopefully they find the grace to adhere to the rule of law. Thank you very much.
DF. Now let's go to chapter 3. I will read chapter 3, possibly to the end, and then maybe read chapter 4 as well. And let me see chapter 5. No, maybe up to chapter 4. Then we would wrap it up. So I'm going to take a course where everyone will be entitled to react. Then we will continue the reading after that. Maybe tomorrow afternoon. If you are able to join us, that would be great. If you have this copy, if you have a copy of this book, I implore you to read with us. I think it's mostly fun when you open it yourself and you are following the reading. Also, if you don't have a copy, I also implore you to please get a copy. You'll be doing two things. Number one, you'll get to know more of the deeply corrupted Nigerian judiciary. And what does that even mean? When everybody just says they are all corrupt, you need to understand the corruption level. Okay? Then secondly, you will be contributing into helping the children with disability, special needs, like autism and what have you, in Nigeria. Because the proceeds of this book goes straight into funding at least 4 different charitable groups in Nigeria, taking care of children with special needs in Nigeria. So you will be doing 2 things at a time. You'll be getting 2 things in that regard, okay? So let's go to chapter 3. Having told us about his background, what motivated him to go and read law or study law and become a lawyer and all that, his childhood, and those who impacted in his world views and all that. Now, I think this is us now getting into the heart of the matter, right? So let's go to chapter 3. The practice of law. Prince Ademola Adeniji Adele, otherwise known as the Prince of Hope, or Papa, was my friend and an older brother. I was president of the LASU Student Union, LASUSU, when he was released from Abacha's Gulag in 1995. His brother-in-law, Saheed Salawe, was a fellow student in the Faculty of Law, and I became known. So I came to know his wife, Auntie Tawa, who was also a LASU student through Saheed Salawe, otherwise known as SS. I was literally adopted into the Adeniji Adele and Salawe families. He was one of my God-appointed gatekeepers. By the time I was done with my law degree program at LASU, there were 2 sets of LASU law graduates waiting to be admitted into the Nigerian law school. The Abacha dictatorship had decreed that the law school be relocated to Abuja. The dictator's daughter was ready to attend the school, and since the father had no interest in sending the daughter to the law school in Lagos, the school had to be moved to Abuja in order to accommodate the first daughter. The unplanned and forced movement to the new site, the former Center for Democratic Studies under Professor Omo Omorui, the center was one of Babangida's several social incubatory laboratories. The unpretentious killer of democracy, having no pretense of democratic intentions, put the moribund facility to use. The new facility couldn't take as many students as the Lagos campus that Abacha presumed to decree out of existence. And the Council of Legal Education was saddled with a backlog of qualified law graduates without the space to accommodate them. Papa followed me to Abuja and went with me to Buhari to see the then secretary to the Council of Legal Education, Prince Victor Olagbade Olateru Olagbegi. I also had a letter from him from Justice Musiliu Okwe Agbe, a very upright man and a model jurist. He was at the time a judge of the Lagos High Court. I was friends with his children, and he also wrote to VF, as Prince Olateru Olagbegi was popularly called, to urge that I be admitted. As with all things Nigerian, the unplanned nature of the Abuja relocation created a toll gate of solicitations and underhand deals. From the universities to the law school, admission into the law school became a racket, and access depended on who you knew. These are the men that God used to ensure that I went to the law school without further delay. They were the equalizers of my Nigerian factor. Upon graduation from the law school and being called to the bar, I had a decision to make about my next move. I was already 31 years old. I had spent a total of 12 years to earn a single degree. I was tired of being maintained by my mother, a single parent for over 20 years by this time, and I just wanted to stop being a burden to her and perhaps help her by not remaining a charge on her finances. I wanted to work with Wale Babalakin's firm. It was probably the best paying law practice in Lagos at the time, but my quest to work with him had nothing to do with the salary being paid. Wale Babalakin, son, had a reputation for being a sharp-witted businessman. He was always impeccably turned out. Didn't seem stuffy like the other senior counsels and the junior lawyers in the chambers. And he evoked all the stereotypes of the smart up and coming. Goal-getting attorneys. That was where I wanted to be. I, again, asked the help of Justice Okwe Agbe, as he then was, in speaking with Wale Babalakin, and he did. He was told that they had no space in the office. When I heard that Barrister Olawale Babalakin, BOB, as he was called, was friends with Papa, I pressed Papa into my lobby group as well, and he also spoke with Babalakin on my behalf. I am now not certain about who communicated the job offer to me, but I was offered the job of company secretary at another of Babalakin's businesses, Duncan Wood, as it was called, which was then the construction arm of his business. The job was paying 30,000 naira at the time, that his law office was paying 25,000 naira. I refused the job. I took the time to explain to everyone involved, Papa, Justice Okweagbe, that while I was not ungrateful for what was a great opportunity, I had never envisioned myself as a corporate lawyer, and I wouldn't be happy as a company's in-house counsel or secretary, and that all I wanted was to work in the litigation firm. I took the time to explain how I had spent so many years reading law, but with the clear hope of training as a barrister above all else. Justice Musiliu Okweagbe found me my first job as I was exiting the law school to start my new life as a lawyer. New judges were also being appointed to the Lagos bench, and one of them was TAO Abdullahi. Okweagbe, gay, was one of the oldest judges on the Lagos bench, and I believed he must, at some point, have told her of his need for a job for me. I was therefore directed to see her in a judicial chambers at the Abdullahi J law office. TAO Abdullahi and Co. were principally counsel to the Ojomu Shiftansi family, one of the largest land-owning families in the Etiosa, Lagos State axis, and they had several lands-related matters in various courts. The practice, which was located at 125 Igboshire Road, was then being run by the duo of Mr. Mike Bayowa and the head of practice, and Ms. Fumi Babatunde as partners. I joined the practice as the new wig, the grunt, and generally began to learn my trade there. The firm had become known as Basa and Partners by the time I joined on a princely salary of 5,000 naira monthly. The introduction to legal practice couldn't have been gentler. The head of chambers and practice, Mr. Mike Bayowa, was the model boss from whom to learn the basic of litigation, and is a gentleman to boot. Easygoing, no airs, a family man, Christian, scrupulously honest, friendly, and extremely fair-minded. He was ferociously loyal to our mutual boss in disguise, or TAO. Only took her name off the wall. She remained the sole signatory to several accounts, and everything of consequence was run by her. She recruited me. As I already stated at the beginning, I do not intend to tell the story of my life, but then the law is my life. Whilst I shall consciously avoid making this book personal, it is inevitably and necessarily personal. I met my future wife, Ms. Fumi Babatunde, whilst employed at Basa and Partners. And when I decide to tell the story of that season of my life, I will tell the story in full. I shall, however, state for the records and on my honor that I never had any romantic thoughts, relationship, or engagement with the woman that has today become the love of my life and my true blessing, even though I walked with her with our tables side by side for the first 3 months of my professional life. I was at the time strenuously seeking to convince several unattached friends to consider dating the impeccably trained and beautiful senior in my office. I thank God for their collective blindness. I was already determined to spend a couple of years learning my trade. The fact that my mother continued to subsidize my living freed me of pecuniary considerations in deciding what job to accept and which to reject. Our sacrificial parenting explains why I could thumb up my nose at a 30,000 naira per month salary to accept the 5,000 naira monthly job that I did accept in order to keep my date with destiny. My stay at Basa and Partners wasn't destined to be long, and it ended in what I believe to be 3 months. I take a lot of pride in being a lawyer, and it is for me the peak and noblest of all the professions. I am extremely chauvinistic about the primacy of counsel. in the pecking order of a law practice. This was the catalyst for my earlier than planned exit from Barrister and Partners. The practice comprised 3 lawyers, the head of the chambers, Mr. Michael Bayowa, my future wife, Ms. Fumi Babatunde, and my humble self, the newly minted wig. Then we had the clerk, Mukaila, and the receptionist, or typist, Joy. These were the lawyers and support staff of the law firm of Barrister and Partners. This Joy, the typist it was, that proved the catalyst for my early departure, inevitable as that was always going to be. By my own deliberate design, I had to stop depending on my mother for the monthly subvention at some point, and 5,000 naira was not enough to live on, even at the time. I had come to be trusted with most legal drafting work by Mr. Bayowa pretty early. My Oga trusted my capacity with doctrine, law, and language to the point where he quickly stopped bothering to edit my work, and we also found that the lady Tao rarely had any corrections to make to work drafted by me when sent to her for her scrutiny, as was the norm in my time at Barrister and Partners. I handed Joy a draft of whatever it was I needed typed up, and that was where the problem began. As was the culture, she handed me a mock copy of the document printed on scrap paper. Reading through, I found what I believed to be a typing error or omission, and I explained to Madam Joy, in expectations of her prompt action to address her errors. I couldn't have been more wrong than I was to find you are the one that is wrong. Lawyer Dele, was a retort. Muti faint. I could have fainted and died in equal measure. I spent 3 sessions reading English language and linguistics. I had read every James Hadley Chase series before I even entered my teenage years. I read every fictional books that was on the shelves of the children's library at Aberdeen before I was out of primary school. I was taught the English language in my mother tongue. My secondary school library had no literary work to occupy me again by the time I was in Form 3. And I had read the Bible out of boredom at least 4 times before coming out of my teen, purely out of boredom and devoid of any quest for a God that was never outside of me. Madam Joy had dared to correct my use of the English language. Amy, the law, barrister, lawyer, akoneniwaju adajo. It was one thing to have survived stage fright at different times, appearing before magistrates and the rent tribunals as a nervous new wig. And then there was the error of having to tell a judge that my principal was in another court and I needed to have our case stood down as had been agreed with the opposing counsel. Try talking with your tongue cleaved to the roof of your mouth. The impertinence was for me a final straw. How dare the support staff query a lawyer's call in the pursuit of his professional duty? I sent the draft back to be printed with a clear rebook and instructions to follow the original letters of my draft, and was handed the document in short order. As has been the lifelong predilection with me, I read through the final print before I would send the work out. Lo and behold, the editorial judgments of my self-appointed Oga remained intact and untouched. I was enraged, incensed, and just about ready to explode. Why? I demanded, as I struggled to rein in my temper in the face of her sneering insolence. I was wrong, she insisted, and she correct, my error arising from my newness at the bar. I shall refrain from telling you the response that issued from me, but it ended with the impasse being referred to Mr. Bayowa for his adjudication. I was right, he ruled, and she was wrong. But it wasn't enough for me. I expected the secretary to be rebooked and told her place in the pecking order of the law office, and that was not done. The fact that she was unapologetic about the incident and somewhat rude made it difficult for me to accept that she was not reprimanded. I resigned my employment with Barrister and Partners with immediate effect. My laid-back Oga was taken aback and so was my other senior, Ms. Babatunde. They appealed and pleaded, all to no avail, and meeting a brick wall. Mr. Bayoa went to report back to our ultimate Oga, who promptly issued a warrant for my appearance in a chambers at the EKiti High Court. Tao is a woman of considerable bulk, and all of her features are exaggerated and easy to caricaturize, but she is also charismatic and can be quite charming. All fantastic camouflage for a cunning mind that is completely sybaritic in focus. She is a formidable woman and a very impatient bully. She barely listens to my growls before declaring me the wrong party, and she missed the opportunity to hear out my grievances. She capped it all by presuming to order me to withdraw my letter of resignation. I simply ignored her and went through with my intention as already stated in the letter of resignation. I wasn't to see her again until over 2 years later, on the occasion of my marriage, when she was the chairperson at the wedding reception. That is the woman that Dele Farotimi said when she had a case with Afe Babalola. That was the woman that was the case was assigned to, right? And the woman dismissed the case even before the right. I think we are getting to the juiciest part soon now, right? At the time of working with Basa and partners, I was in a long-term relationship. My partner lived with her parents in Ikoyi, and I had finally given up my Okokomaiko student flat to become a squatter in my late friend Ibrahim Bakari's flat at EJ Housing Estate at Dolphin. I was within striking distances of my workplace and my girlfriend's home. This was before our world shrank with the advent of mobile phones in its current ubiquitous fashion. I was therefore at the time of becoming unemployed, also pretty much homeless. And it was at my squat that I waited out the season before the next job and the scene of one of the defining moments of my legal practice. We are getting there. So that woman, which according to Dele Farotimi, that's Tao, T-A-O, who happened to be a judge, who was instrumental to how Dele Farotimi got his first job, his 5,000 naira a month job at Basa and Partners. So when Dele Farotimi resigned, she ordered him to come and see her. Without listening to him, she ordered him to go back to that practice. And Dele Farotimi didn't listen. For 2 years later, after Dele Farotimi and Miss Babatunde Fumi, Dele Farotimi's wife now, when they were to get married, it was the same Tao woman that was the chairperson or the chairman of the occasion. Right. We are getting there. So it's all connecting now. Sometimes you just wonder, why is he telling us all of that? Why is he mentioning those names? Because all those names he's mentioning, they are going to come up later in what he actually revealed in this book. Let's try on. Chapter 4, the laborer's wage. In the immediate aftermath of my resignation from my primary employers, Basa, I was left with no choice but to stay home whilst waiting for another job. I was in the flat one late morning when I heard a knock at the door. It was a young woman. She seemed about my age and was asking for me. She said she had been told a lawyer lived there, she said, and something about some other female lawyer was in the mix. I was not the one she was seeking. She was nonetheless happy to brief me or any other lawyer, she insisted. I invited her into the flat and asked what it was she wanted a lawyer to do. She had just bought a property at one of the Jakonde estates, she explained, and she needed a lawyer to draft the conveyance agreement. I believe that the property in question was located at Lekki, one of the Morocco resettlement scheme flats, and she wanted to know what she would have to pay. She would have to pay me for the job. I calculated the bill using the scale, and it came to a little above 30,000 naira. Now, you must remember that I was paid above 5,000 naira at my last and only job as a lawyer. I offered to produce the document at a discounted rate of about 20,000 naira. The lady took one look at me and concluded that she wasn't about to pay my clearly unemployed self that pricely sum, and proceeded to offer me about 5,000 naira. I was very happy to turn her down, and in the process, cemented the principle that I have preached to every counsel that has ever worked with me. I explained to her my reasoning. I told her how I had reduced my bill without her having to ask, on account of two facts that I then proceeded to elucidate after making sure to first apologize and then ask her indulgences. The established fact that she was at the time a single woman doing what most men had not done evoked memories of my own mother, a hard-working single mother. The second being the fact that she was a working client and I was a broke, unemployed new wig. These were, however, not sufficient reasons for me to devalue my own professional capital, and I walked away happily. Laura Subonimi. So that's the end of chapter 4. Do you think we can take on chapter 5, which happened to be about, let's see, about 10 pages? No, it's actually very long. Do you want me to continue reading, or we should take a break and take calls and let us digest what we have read so far? Which one would you prefer? Continue reading, or let's take a break? Oh, I should continue. Okay, fair enough. Let's go to chapter 5. Somebody said chapter 5, chapter 6. We are talking about 12 pages now. That's what we're going to go on. So if you are cool with it. And how about the reading, by the way? Is the reading not too fast, not too slow? I know it's not slow, but I hope it's not too fast. It's not like... Because, yeah, we are getting to the juiciest parts now. So, but let's continue then. So the journey to KOT, chapter 5. I left the 5,000 naira a month job with Basa and partners, unworried about the lost wages. I wasn't exactly living on it, and whilst I was pretty rough around the edges and nowhere near being ready to inflict my ignorance on the society, I did not bother to go around looking for a job. I took the time to give myself some rest from the routine of the new life had just begun, and had enough time to assure my father that I was totally uninterested in joining the Osun State Judicial Service or services, in spite of his urging and preachment. But that's a tale to be told another day. Ademola Adeshina Ogunlana, an older friend from my days at Adanla Hostel in Okokomaiko, had left his employment with Lawal Pedro's private law office and was on his own. He had built himself an advocacy practice that was already known for his imagination and lawyering dexterity. He had just got Oji, the cannibal of the murder rap. You remember Clifford Oji? Okay. So, lawyer Ogunlana, God rest his soul, is late now. He died this year. He had just got Oji, the cannibal of the murder rap, properly declared insane, and was at the time engaged in the defense of Guru Maharaji. His junior, Tomi Akinyemi, was a sister and dear friend from our days in Okokomaiko. And Baba Kembi was also involved, as was Ade Oteju, another sister born of Okokomaiko, who was at the time working with Baba Kembi. I joined Ogunlana on an incredible salary of 3,000 naira a month to work for longer hours and even more work. I am forever grateful for the opportunity provided and the experience it offered in beginning to understand the rot ingrained into our criminal justice system. Ogunlano's law practice is not a business. It was in my days with him a charitable venture. His raising the tire was the rescue of the victims of the judicial system and the inequitable state. Ogunlano came from pretty modest stock, and our social background are not dissimilar. But whilst the disadvantages of our youth have definitely shaped our views of the world, we are markedly different in our treatment of an approach to wealth and money. Ogunlano read law as a second degree. I have never asked for him to tell me his story. It is his to tell. He impacted my views of the law. He impacted my views of law, taught me his practice, and I owe him the duty of acknowledgement and attribution. Law is my first and only end degree, but we spent comparative numbers of years in the university system where the economic pressure on him to earn money quickly was higher. He was not practicing his law as a business from whence to turn his undoubted value into money. He merely saw the law as a weapon in the hands of the just in a perpetual battle against bad men. The visits to the prisons for pretrial conferences with our clients were traumatic for me. I was left feeling guilty with the charade and pretenses carried on by all, that justice will prevail. I couldn't pretend that the magistrates were better than our hapless clients, or that the gaolers themselves are not the ones that should be in prison. The regular visit to the Kirikiri maximum security prison were particularly painful for me. The trio of Bamayi, Al-Mustafa, and Dan Baba will be found loitering around, receiving visitors, or simply holding court. Exactly where we would wait for our clients to be brought, they would strut around like they owned the place, immaculately turned out in well-starched and iron Guinea brocade in the Senegalese fashion of the age. Bamayi was the real Elewon Tonfi Agusowo, the privileged Rolex sporting felon, a rebuke to the class-imposed punishment that their imprisonment were. The eventual conclusions of their trial confirmed the beliefs that I have always held on the Nigerian criminal justice. The men certainly paid for their crimes against the system, but they have never been held to account for the crimes with which they were charged and the public reasons for their detentions. Working with Ogunlano opened my eyes to the rot and putrefaction of the system. In addition to the daily fight for justice he waged in the courts and through the inequitable system, Ogunlano also edited and published the definitive judicial journal known as Squib. Combining his initial training as a linguist, having earned his first undergraduate degree in the English language, with his keen sense of justice, humor, and courage, the magazine became a foremost watchdog in the judicial system, and it was a privilege to serve a believer like Ogunlano. I was, however, not going to stay here for long, for whilst I was all for human rights and all, I have never been a fan of black. Whilst my oga and friend couldn't care less about money, I have never been immune to his charms. The trauma of watching the real criminals walking free, sitting in judgment, or being chauffeured in stately limousines at the victim's expense soon took away the pleasure that came from being involved with the several exotic clients of my friend and boss. Hearing men remanded in prison for armed robbery described what they were engaged in as business. Matter of fact, cold and blatantly. The occasional death mentioned in the charge, collateral damage soon enough dissipated my enjoyment of the practice, and I soon again moved to another employer, Law Links, it was named. I was already over a year old at the bar by the time I was leaving Ogunlano's office to work at Law Links. I cannot now remember how I came to know of the job. There was nothing to recommend the practice to anyone desirous of learning the practice of law from a senior counsel or within the structured environment. The practice was owned by Ladipo Anishilowo Esquire, Anilad, to his friends and admirers. He was more of a businessman than a lawyer, and I doubt he ever wore his wig and gown after posing for the customary pictures at the call to the bar. He was allergic to the practice of law. He had at some point worked in the legal department of the Federal Mortgage Bank and had somehow managed to retain a relationship with the management that assured a steady stream of briefs to the practice. The problem was that he had no time for the law practice, and as I was to find, he lacked both the nous and knowledge, but the job suited me just fine. It was exactly what I needed at that point in time. The senior counsel was completely disinterested. I became the sole lawyer in the firm. I was, in theory, managed by Anila's younger brother, an excellent chap, if ever there was one. I got the opportunity to test myself, to find out exactly where I was in my journey to my ultimate destination and purpose. The reason for which I had resolved not to take the easy road that was Duncan Wood. I was my own boss. The extent of supervision that a non-lawyer could force on a resourceful counsel is negligible, however intelligent the manager might be. He being a carpenter and the lawyer learned, with the rebellious younger me, the younger Anishilowo never stood a chance, and I ran rings around him for the fun of it. I was free to run my cases as I saw fit and argue my trials as I believed right. I got to test how ready I was to strike out on my own and start my practice. I was also allowed the freedom to take my own briefs, and the freedom I was afforded enabled my growth. I was, however, happy to stay until the several egos collided. The non-lawyer managing Aburo had a legal opinion, and the non-practicing Egbon took his side. The old chauvinist again resigned. My late friend, older brother, and occasional gist partner, Ademola Adeniji Adele, had told me about Anilad. They were contemporaries at the then University of Ife as young me and undergraduates, and I was deluged with many anecdotes of his Ado-Ekiti pedigree. Favored son of his Ekiti father, he was on the campus, according to Papa, a wannabe, almost always the butt of the jokes and particularly easy to caricature because whilst considered unsophisticated by the Lagos Prince and his poses, he had the inherited wealth, and there might have been some youthful resentment of the social upstart by the Lagos Prince. It is really ever funny unless it is at somebody else's expense. The constant image of my boss, who was at the time of my employment with him completely bald, was of an Arokean bogey with a full head of jerry-cord hair, flared jeans pants with bell bottoms, with all the affectations, inflections, and dictions of the Ekiti man, eager to pass himself off as a worldly man. It didn't help matters that he spoke English in a thick Ekiti accent and would rarely complete a sentence before breaking off into his heavily accented Yoruba in our infrequent meetings. Of all the men I work with, he taught me nothing about the practice of law, except perhaps to show me how not to ever run a law practice. I resigned my appointment with him, and of everyone that I ever worked for, he is the only one with whom I have never stayed in touch. He later found his calling as Ayofayoshe's chief of staff. Whilst I knew and was conscious of the fact that I was nowhere near being ready to strike out on my own at the time of leaving Law Link, my economic reality had been altered by my mother's return to Nigeria to nurse Maami, who was rendered prostrate by old age and the many geriatric health issues. She was struggling with keeping up with the usual subsidy that was more than my salary, and I knew that winter was coming and that the time to pay my own bills had come even closer. I briefly toyed with the idea of striking out on my own, but Providence intervened yet again. some life-defining events happened whilst I was in the process of transiting from law link to my next and final place of salaried employment. And whilst the memories have become a tad foggy, I do remember the broad facts. These were innocuous and seemingly unrelated at the time of the occurrences, but in the rear view mirror of time and with the 2020 vision of the past, it has become easier to see that they were providential orchestrations of the Almighty God. When I left Barrister and Partners, I parted ways with everyone, including Joy, the editorial typist, on a cordial note. And when I had cases at the EKiti High Court or any of the other courts, I will be found dropping in on my old office to eat lunch, catch up, and sometimes to simply catch my breath. I was also asked to help out occasionally with something I had worked on whilst in the firm. I stayed in touch with my old office and was always welcomed back. The fact that I was allowed the latitude to accept my own briefs at law links meant that, as with young lawyers, I started hustling to make a quick buck. The aforementioned change in my financial circumstances with my mother's return also had me under pressure to make my own money. Barrister and Partners, as I had mentioned earlier, were essentially the retained counsel for the Ojomu family, and the office had a healthy real estate section headed by Ms. Babatunde. My newfound need to make money, the fact that I was at the time sharing living quarters with Jide Akinloye and a flat with now deceased Ibrahim Bakari, meant that I gravitated towards parlaying my friendship with my old colleagues at Barrister into a viable business opportunity. I had been providentially placed in the center of the Ojomu land transactions with my network of relationships. Barrister handled all the family's land sales and documentation exclusively. No other lawyers were allowed to prepare deeds of assignment for the Ojomu family. And with the exception of Alhaji Bakari's personal lawyer, Mark Greola, is that a name? Anyway, Mark Greola, the family very rarely bent this rule. I had been introduced to Ajiro by Ibrahim whilst we were yet in Lasu, and Jide, the son of the Kabiesi, was also a friend from our Lasu days. I was at the coronation ceremony of the reigning monarch and was well known amongst the denizens. The fact that I was friendly with and for long connected to the natives helped my cause, and I soon had several briefs from amongst the younger elements, giving me instructions to act for them in the sale of their family assigned plots of land. These instructions were wasted on me. I did not know anyone to whom I might market the swamp that Ajiro, Osakpa, Agungi, and Co. once were. But I remembered my old friend and office colleague, Fumi Babatunde, did no buyers of land from the Ojomu family, and she was bound to know if someone would be happy to buy. Hakim Anjolaiya, who was the one that had the brief 2 plots of land and behind what is today the Ajiro Community Mosque, 400,000 naira a piece it was. Olufumilayo had a buyer through another lawyer. Emanku Ade was his name. This was the transaction that got me to know my wife outside of the Barrister offices. We were not to become romantically involved until several months thereafter, but it marked the beginning of a very deep asexual relationship, and it is why I have often been heard to declare that I am blessed to have married my friend. Another story for another day. In the immediate aftermath of my resignation from law links, and whilst I was still squatting at Dolphin with my late friend Ibrahim, with whom I had a very competitive relationship and whose argumentations with me were stuffs of legends among all of our friends and neighbors, I was made an offer by a dear friend's mom, one that I was never moved to consider, but which, with the benefit of hindsight, probably sealed my fate in more ways than one. My friend and landlord had just been appointed the secretary to Etiosa local government, and I was at home, having again resigned from yet another job. I had grown tired of the daily drive from Wemabod Estate, where Law Link was located, and was not in a hurry to pick up another job at minimum wage. Lawyers being the worst paid of all salaried professionals, if I was going to take another job, it had to be one that must contribute to rounding up what I considered my privilege. Having determined that I would learn my trade in different firms, offering me the training I knew that I required for the first 2 years post-call to bar, I was loafing around in the flat, considering my options. I received the offer of a magistracy around this period from first, a dear friend, and after I had turned down the offer from my mother. I thanked her profusely for the offer, turned it down politely, and then proceeded to explain why, as she watched me in stunned silence. I had never desired to be a judge, I explained. I had read law with being a barrister in mind, legal drafting, commercial and criminal, general legal practice. That's what I had dreamt of from my youth, and is all I wanted to do. She took one look at me and must have concluded that I was doomed to die of penury. I had turned down a job paying 30,000 naira. Here I was, saying no to the magistrate job. So Dele Farotimi could have been a magistrate. Wow. That paid 60,000 naira at the time, and with a Corolla salon car and a flat at the LSPDC estate. A life-tenured job to boot. Whilst loafing around unemployed and a squatter in another man's home. Not long after this episode, I was adjudged a waste of time and summarily dumped by my Ikoyi dwelling long-term girlfriend. Not that I ever blamed her, even I would have dumped me and be done with it. I was not a particularly good suitor, I must admit, brash, abrasive, and stubborn to boot. I was a pain in the poor girl's dairy for long enough. Did not appear to have much by way of prospects. Obstinate as mule, and the poor girl deserves a murder for having tolerated my insufferable person for as long as she did. I was a New Year's resolution going into the poker year 2000 AD. I got my yellow card over Christmas turkey on the 26th of December and the red card on the 3rd of January, year 2000 or thereabouts. For the first time in my adult life, I was alone and without a relationship. I had no helper or friends with benefits, and I was completely uninterested in the shenanigans that went with dating. 5 years of an intense and turbulent relationship had robbed me of any interest in the opposite sex. It was also quite fortuitous that I had come out of the several dalliances that I had maintained pari passu with the long-term relationship that had just ended. I was alone, and I was enjoying the freedom from the care that was expected of a man somehow beholden to a woman by virtue of the expectations that go with being in a relationship. My reintroduction to my wife was during this period. We did some Ojomu land sales together and became very good friends because she was friends with Jide Akinloye, whose flat was opposite my landlord's own. She would sometimes come to the flat at Dolphin, and we would all just hang around in one of the flats. We were either in Baki's flat or Jide's. Baki was watching TV, sprawling on the sofa, and I started with what had become my daily song to Jide, urging him to come and date my newfound friend and former colleague, Miss Fumilayo Babatunde. All three of us were bachelors. Baki was already seriously entangled and smitten with his girlfriend, Lolade Sholebo, whom he was to marry not long afterwards. Jide was single and searching, and I had just been dumped. I was uninterested in any relationship that requires me to be the least bit considerate of another person's emotion and or feelings. I was busy telling Jide how much sense it would make for him to consider chasing for me, selling her sterling qualities to Jide Akinloye, who already knew her from her work with his family and from her increasingly frequent visits to this Dolphin apartments when Ibrahim, who had laid slouched on the sofa watching TV, seemingly disinterested, in our conversation butted in. If she's so good, why aren't you dating her? The scales dropped with the entrance of those words into my spirit, and I saw my wife for the very first time since I had met her when I walked into Basa and Partner. So you see, the law is very personal to me. The law defines my life. The law introduced my wife to me, and the law is my very life. And whilst this book was never intended as an autobiography, it is necessarily thematically autobiographical. But the story of my life, Olufumilayo Olufumilola, is not meant for this book. I shall tell you of the true blessing of my life some other day. On one of my visits to my former office, colleagues and my newfound lover, I met a most cherubic, cheerful, and earnest man, and we were, for a reason, friends. He is none other than Rotimi Oyekon. He is younger brother to Oyekon Abdullahi, okay? A financial consultant and analyst. He was operating out of the Basa offices at a point in time. He was an ebullient, hopeful man, the eternal optimist, charismatic and straightforward. He was my superior in age and by every measure, but he had time for me and for everyone. A good man. So I'm now unsure of how Egbon Rotimi got involved. I had either mentioned that I had I had left my employers or was getting ready to do so. He somehow got to know. He then mentioned me to his friend down the road at 215 on the same Iboshere Road. Babatunde Raji Fashola was the friend, BRF. Was at the time the managing partner at KO Tinubu & Co. I was asked to send my application to the firm and was in short order invited to an interview with the partners. The interview was conducted by BRF himself, and whilst I cannot now recall with certainty if the then deputy head of chambers, Mr. Rachid Oluwa, was at the interview, I believe it is safe to assume his presence. The interview was routine. The job required a young lawyer with some trial experience and was tailor-made for someone as me. Desirous of learning the practice of law from professionals who took their jobs seriously, there was to be a brief but memorable moment just before the interview was brought to a close. BRF looked quizzically at my CV for the obtained time and quipped, You don't appear to have stayed long in the places where you have worked before this job. Why? If we employed you, how long would you be staying? I will stay not less than 6 months. I warranted and went further to explain how I had viewed my employment as the opportunity to serve the pupillage that had been scrapped before I qualified as a lawyer. I explained how I was of the opinion that a lawyer is unready for the rigors and challenges of law practice until he had learned the rudiments of actual law practice from senior colleagues, as was the case in the past, and how my ultimate ambition was to run my own law practice. I was hired on a salary of 12,000 naira monthly. That is the end of chapter 5. So we have chapter 6, which in itself is, let's see, is about 9 pages. Do you really think we should still continue or just keep the juicy, because it's like gradually as DF is dropping names, right? We are getting closer and closer to what riled the system. All these names, all these happenings, all these events and all of them, it didn't just put them in this book for nothing. They were to lead to something that became this bigger to what we are dealing with today. So don't you think we should take a break? Take calls. Let me tell you some of the headings. So it's got chapter 6, the practice. Chapter 7, the beginning of the end. Chapter 8, the purchased judgment. So you see, the chapter 6, 7, and 8, I think that is the whole crux of the whole matter. What do you think? Some people said that we should take a break and take calls and then leave the suspense to another time. What do you think? You see, I think so I think we should take a break. Okay, we have started. We can finish this on 2 readings, right? We can finish it in 2 readings, today and tomorrow. So which means when you have this first part, it has given you the background of the journey of Dele Farotimi until he became that lawyer, the lawyer that has upset the other lawyers, including the judiciary that is now persecuting him. There is more from that, not just the book. There is more to actually give credence to what Dele Farotimi said in this book. I have other clips in this collection on my screen here, but I'm going to use them later this evening. So let's take a break. No, don't let us do a poll. See, I can sit here and read everything. You get that now, but let's break it into 2. The first part, then it's absolute, let's see, how many chapters are there in all? I'll tell you. The total chapters, see, if we have already done 5 chapters, you know, everything is 9 chapters. Yes, 9. And we have done pages. Then we have read about 45 pages already in one sitting. And the total pages are 90, 97, 96. Yeah, 96 pages. You get that now? So we have done 45. That's like half. Let's take a break and react to this, okay? Let's take calls. I will be back in a minute or 2. We'll conclude this tomorrow. We'll finish the reading tomorrow, okay? So please like the broadcast and share it. And then, yeah, subscribe to the channel as well so that you won't miss it tomorrow. If you haven't gotten your own copy, try and get one. The reason is that it is beautiful to read together. And to those of you who are just buying the book and you're likely not going to read, except somebody inspired you to do so, right? So maybe this will make you want to read it, or you can read with us from where we are stopping now. So we'll continue from chapter 6 tomorrow. Let me take a break, stretch my leg and all that. Take a call for like another 40 minutes and then call it a day. Okay? make it on. Thank you so much, brethren. Right now, the line is opened for everyone who wants to probably had their own reactions to this so far. So the starting point was that the EKiti Federal High Court has granted Dele Farotimi bail, and the bail was put at 50 million naira, and the like sum for the surety as well. Is a surety is expected to be a resident in Ekiti. The surety will pay 50 million as well. I think the normal bail bond is 10%, isn't it? Is that not what they do in Nigeria too? If the court says your bail is 50 million, you pay 10%, which is 5 million naira. You will deposit 5 million naira with the courts, right? But they wanted the surety to also, that surety must be somebody who is from Ekiti, who lives in Ekiti. He must have 3 years tax clearance. The surety must have a property, built property in Ekiti, not just landed property, house, to be precise. He must have a house in Ekiti. The surety must also deposit the deed of that property. They must deposit that with the registrar in Ekiti. The surety must submit 4 recent passport photographs, as well as 4 recent full pictures, full photograph of themselves, right, to the court. The surety, well, the last one is that, okay, Dele Farotimi must submit his international passport. This is defamation, for goodness sake. This is not a criminal case, but this police IG is currently, as we can see why, or we will soon probably know better why the entire establishment is involved in all of this. I think I have my first caller. Hello there.
Hello, good afternoon, Maiyegun.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you, Baba?
It's not bad. It's TJ from Plumstead.
Oh,
Long
TJ,
time.
how are you doing today, sir?
Not bad. Just a quick one.
Yes, sir.
Maiyegun,
Sir.
defamation is not a criminal offense in Ekiti.
Yes.
Chidi Kalu mentioned it yesterday. So all these things they are doing, they knew what they were doing.
I know.
So if you look at it very well,
Yes, sir.
they picked the guy up from Lagos, took him all the way to Ekiti. They arranged a judge waiting for them to arrive. Not the following day or in the morning, the same day, I guess.
Yes.
The same day. Now, Maiyegun, is it possible for anybody to arrange anybody for court same day with not even 24 hours? Is it possible?
Well,
but everything was pre-planned.
It was pre-planned. Thank God. To even make it, let me even bust your bubble again as well. They said that there is a court bench warrant for his arrest, and they have not produced that court warrant till now.
Up to now, yes.
You get that? They were supposed to present and say, okay, Dele Farotimi was supposed to attend the court. He didn't attend, so a court bench warrant was issued. No copy of that bench warrant. If you have to present it, you have to present the name of the judge who issued it. So everything is like scripted that way. You're right.
Typical Nigerian thing. Nothing works in that country. Maiyegun, to round it up,
yes, sir.
Is what I want to say. I'm not sure if I can say it on your program.
You should
Maiyegun,
go ahead. Yeah.
How much is it to hire sniper in Germany or Norway? Let us call politicians. Each sniper can hire one. If you don't get rid of all these people, we can't do anything. The army are not ready to get involved to change Nigeria because they are benefiting from it. Yeah. The police will not do anything. So and if you look at it again, everything against 27, we have not even finished 2 years of this president. You are talking about 2027. So they are just using 27 as distraction. And I'm telling you, there's nothing. They are using this Dele Farotimi to scare people.
Every person who is outspoken against these guys, they will be eliminated or exiled before 2027.
That is it. Before 2027, yes.
Is that they will force you to run away from Nigeria, or they will get you in jail, or they will kill you. something, they are
That is
out for blood.
That is it. And if you look at it, Sowore is fed up and he has left. Kanu is going to be there till God knows when. There were rumors that it's going to be released before Christmas. It is all just to cool people down. These people, they know who they're going to pick up next.
They do.
They know who they... And Farotimi said something. Everything has been pre-planned. I don't know how he knew everything. So how can you before you give out a warrant, you must have proof that that person has been summoned.
And he didn't come.
Yeah.
But there's no proof of any of that.
Yeah, but we all know that if government says something in Nigeria, they said it and that is it. Nothing is going to happen.
Well,
so thank you for reading everything. You've really carried us along. Even the lazy ones, you've carried everybody along. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Have a nice day, Maiyegun.
As well. But you have a good one. Okay, we are watching, and like you said, even the people that are finding it difficult to actually sit down and open the book, even after buying it, they have no excuse anymore. They have
to go and walk. They have to eat.
And
people will go to war
anymore, Baba.
Yes.
So much, TJ.
Before I go, there's much similarity between you and Farotimi. I'm very positive what I'm saying. It's like a compliment to Maiyegun. You are so honest. You have been watching for like 5 years now. Nothing has changed about you. And if you look at Dele Farotimi, they've offered him money. He didn't take it. I can bet they've offered you many things. You refused.
I mean, if I have to write my own book too. You see that time when he was with his maternal grandfather, grandmother, and in a family, it's like a small court. That's how I grew up as well. You have so much in similarity.
So the difference between you is that because he studied law.
Personal for me too.
Yeah, because he studied law. You didn't study law.
I didn't.
But you have that passion to fight for what you believe. And that's the way Nigerians should be. Fight for what you believe. Say what you believe. But the moment we keep keeping ourselves quiet, the more problem we're going to have in that country.
That's right.
So thank you very much.
We will keep saying it, even if it makes them uncomfortable. That's it.
That's it.
God bless you, Baba. You stay stable, okay? Thank you so much. You see, we have a lot in common. When Dele Farotimi said he was going to go and study political science or so, and then he decided to just go and study law because he's a born lawyer, we have something similar in that regard. So a lot of us, we need to, hang on, I think I have another caller first. Here. Hello there.
Hello, Maiyegun. How are you?
I am very well. Is that Kenneth, right?
Yes, sir. It is me.
It's Kenneth. How are you today? How are you doing?
I'm fine. Are you?
Well, I'm here, still doing the same thing, trying to keep all of us informed as much as possible, even as many are becoming disinterested.
Yeah, I had to sit down and listen to that reading. Everything you read on that Dele Farotimi's book. I said to myself, well, if I know I'm not going to have enough time to sit down and read that book, but if you're going to read it, fine. I think I should I can listen. I hear my listening. And when you started, you continue, you went on and on and on. I like, wait a minute, hold on. Is Maiyegun a lecturer in the university, reading something that I'm taking a pen and a paper, I'm jotting down just in case my next text or my next examination or review is coming up, or what? Because the way you were reading it, it was like as if you were in the scene of the whole thing where it was happening in real time.
Really?
And
thanks so much for the compliment, because I actually hate my own voice. Most of the time when I listen to it, I'm like, let's just fast forward it. And sometimes when I get to listen as well, I'm like, this is a little bit more convincing. But yeah, fair enough that I've got a lot of you who probably enjoyed me reading. Sometimes
I did. Yes, I did. I did. In fact, if you look at the way you are reading it, and then when you each time you analyze each of all this political crap going on in Nigeria, you see that students of history, students of government, in secondary school, like history, government, and whatever, that eventually you move towards into political analysts, like political science, political analysis. The people like this all these so-called jokers call themselves politicians who find themselves in this strategic position in Nigeria. They hate people like you, Maiyegun. They hate you so much because why? Because you are not only interpreting what exactly should be the system of government, but you are actually pointing out how horrific and terrible they are, where they think they are. People like when you talk about, you call this guy Apabiole, Werewike, all those, you point out all their blunders, all the things they do, how they made themselves a demigod. Why? Because when you look at all those things you point out Maiyegun, and then circle back to Dele Farotimi's situation, and what he has, the persecution and the things he's dealing with, even what his book is even portraying, tells you how he himself, as a lawyer, as an individual, has to deal with the reality of the corrupt system
which really changed him. You see that part? Did you hear that part where he said going to the prison to help people that are, wrongly incarcerated? Then he got to see some of the enemies of Nigeria who were living large in prison. Indeed, they might have been in prison for their crime, but they are never punished for all of their criminality per se, because they are still living large, and we still have that today.
Exactly.
He said something about the rich. He said something about the rich getting justice, right? While the poor, right, are the ones who are being punished by the law. So it is the reality that will actually change you if you are anyone who want to fight for justice. Fighting justice in any way, it will change you.
And Maiyegun, recently, I have one of my uncle that lives here in the United States with me.
Right.
His wife is a chief. Wife is also chief judge in Nigeria. She comes around. I think every 6 months or thereabouts. Recently, when she came, we were having this family chief chat discussion, and then the issue of Nigerian politics came into the picture. Maiyegun, trust me, I wish there was a way I could call you and ask you to say, just be quiet. I'll leave the phone on, and then you will listen to my open confrontation. You know what I did, Maiyegun? I told her to her face. I said, law in Nigeria is non-existent. It's a joke. That what you have, is just the highest. The law of the law you have in Nigeria is the law for the highest bidder. That you guys, that Nigerian legal system is not just. In fact, you should just scrap reading law in Nigeria. They should scrap it, because it does not even matter. It does not even count, because the one you have is a different thing completely from what you teach in the classroom.
Yes.
That you as a judge, as I see you, I told her she's my, after all, my uncle is married to her, so automatically she happens to be my wife. I told her, I said, listen, madam, whether you like it or not, I will say it to you now. The truth of the matter is that you guys are not just the problem of Nigeria, you are the genesis and the revelation and the problem of that country. Because why? Because the ordinary man can no longer depend on you guys. Because why? Because you guys have been bought. I did not hold back. I never hold back. I did not hold back. I was.
Some of them are actually surprised with what Dele Farotimi actually said about some of these guys, right? And the truth is that a lot of them knows that he's saying the truth. The judiciary in Nigeria is so corrupt, and they know it. Majority of them have even sold their clients, right, to the highest bidder too, because they were supposed to defend their clients against these powerful people. They ended up licking their asses and sacrificing their clients, right, to these powerful people. They will be telling you that you can't touch those people. I don't want to be in the same courtroom. Like, they are starstruck. You know, when they see these guys in court, and they themselves, who are a bunch of criminals, moving money, bribing judges to procure judgments in such a way that you'll be like, what is the essence of studying law? If some people claim to be the big lawyers, they are not big lawyers because they are good in arguing their cases. Okay, they are big lawyers because they are able to bribe the judiciary. They are able to influence judgments. Look at that ironic during the presidential, tribunal presidential case in the Supreme Court. He was there defending a drug dealer. He said, and he actually told us that because Tiflumbu's passport in Guinea has expired, that means the citizenship of Guinea has expired. Like, what the heck was that? There was no record of Tiflumbu denouncing that citizenship. A senior lawyer said that in front of the Supreme Court, and the judges listened to that, and they said that was not an evidence enough.
And Maiyegun, don't forget to, in addition to what you just said, even when I became a citizen in the US here, the person that presided the process was a judge. He read the content of the law and then have me and the rest of the people that were there to read the aspect of where we started talking about.
Announce your other nationality.
Exactly. Thank you. So if a lawyer is saying that in front of a Supreme Court judge and they did nothing, does Maiyegun, my brother, does that not tell you everything you need to know?
It tells us everything we need to know.
To know that how horrific and terrible the whole system in that place, in that contraction is. Because I mean, it's a laughable stuff now, Maiyegun, for a lawyer saying that in front of a Supreme Court judge, and you and I, who are not even a lawyer, Maiyegun, we're not saying that, and we're watching him saying that, and the two of them, and the judge is just laughing, and they did not
turn around and say, do you know the reputation of this lawyer? Do you know what they have done to legal? What have they done than to destroy the legal system in Nigeria to what it is today?
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Please, let me allow us to talk. Thank you, my
brother. Thank you so much for coming by. Okay, a very good one. Like, they are acting surprised. How can you be acting surprised about Nigerian judicial system, for goodness sake? Okay, let's say it is not all of them, or in a situation where you have the majority of them. That's a whole system. It's like saying there are some good, at least there are some good policemen. It's not all of them. We're talking about a system that harbors the criminals and criminal way. That system is criminal. So if you now say you have, but there are some, I mean, it's not all of them. What do you mean it's not all of them? Why is it not that say, okay, the bad eggs are just few, but the entire system is like saying, oh, well, the American policing system, you will say American, let's even use American now. The American legal system, you can say it is not perfect, Abi, but you cannot beat your chest and begin to say American legal system is so corrupt that only few of them are good. That would have been a systemic flaw that you can't hide. When everything in America, in everything even here in the UK, right? The justice system can be playing pranks on you at the lower levels. When it gets to the higher level, which represent the country, all that bullshitting will be kind of laid to bed, finally. And that is where you have your Supreme Court. If your Supreme Court in a country is in bed with criminals, criminal politicians who can bend the rules anytime they want, then you don't have any legal system. If you have the local sheriff in America that is corrupt, the moment it becomes a federal case, then every sort of a buried corruption at that local level, okay, will be corrected. That's how it should be. Even though you can say it's not perfect, which means there is no perfect system in anywhere in the world. There's always going to be something that is really, really faulty. Sure, you get. But when the entire system is faulty and you are looking for a tiny perfect one, a tiny good one, that's not a system. That's what you have in that contraption. That's what you have in Nigeria. And until you become a victim, a direct one, you are likely not going to appreciate this exposure. Dele Farotimi wrote a book. He did not kill anybody. He did not steal anything. He did not destroy any property. He did not kidnap anyone. He did not ruin anybody's life. He exposed crime in the judiciary. They put him in cuffs. Meanwhile, the person that looted over 110 billion naira, a criminal, look at him on the right. That tells you everything you need to know about Nigeria. This is never going to happen anywhere else in the world. I don't think it will happen anywhere else in the world. Somebody who looted the treasury is walking like a king. And somebody that exposed corruption in a system that did not commit any crime is put in cuffs. That's all you need to know about that contraption. Hello there.
My king.
The prince. That's Prince Adebayo from Sweden. How are you, sir?
I say, I'm fine, my king. I say I must call you today because
you must
somebody
voice, okay?
called you. Yes, yes. Somebody called you earlier, and the person said what I have been saying before. You know, we need to have a list of all these criminals. We need to have a list of all these criminals so that no matter whatever happens in that country, they will never go unpunished. We can either leave them exiled or we will seize their properties in that country. You cannot tell me that somebody like this Babalala will go scot-free with all these things. We don't care.
I mean,
even
the
likes of OBJ.
He's obviously going to go scot-free. Or he's a coward.
Yes.
He's a big coward.
Yes. Baba,
hiding behind police.
Let me tell you. Yes. You know why all these things are happening? There was one, when you were reading the book, there was one part where it says that the Supreme Court had to now share somebody's land. Baba.
Like they are
you know what is, you know the reason.
You understand?
You know why these things are happening? You know why?
We know that this, is actually, we are going to get to that part too. You know what happened in this book is that they are fighting over land, okay? And the real owner of the land, they've won their case in the preliminary stage and then to the appeal court. Then the losers who wanted to steal people's land, they now hired Afe Babalola, who now took the case to the Supreme Court. Now, every document, everything showed that the land belongs to the owner who's won their cases, right?
To the owner.
But the Supreme Court now said, okay, you know what happened is this. We'll divide the land, okay? So you give them some, you take some.
That's
our judgment.
Can you imagine? So, if the Supreme Court cannot determine justice and who is rightful owner of the land, why do they call? Why would they be sitting over the case? We are not looking for our father to come and say, okay, this is the family land. First born, take this to accept.
No.
Justice. That is why you went to the court. And the court should give justice no matter who's off in God. Don't be sharing somebody's land. And that is why I wanted to say what I want to say now. You see, Baba, the problem we have in that country is that we have accepted our given state. How are we addressed? We are addressed as you are from Imo State, you are from Benue State. Those are not our original forms.
No.
If you are addressed by your ancestral names, your ancestral land, then we can trace from who the land went to who. But if we keep addressing ourselves as states that were created by criminals like Babangida. You know what they call that man, Maradona? We come out and we accept something that a criminal, a rejected, God knows he's rotting in hell now, or where his situation is almost finished. Somebody like that will create state for me and you, as enlightened as we are today. We cannot go back.
We are dragging
and
ourselves.
replace.
I am from this state.
And we are dragging ourselves from this state. Can we not see where the problem is coming from? We are no longer our ancestral self. If you go to South Africa, that's why I love the South Africa. They still address themselves as Zulu people, Mosa people. You can never steal those people's land. You can never, and you know that Nigeria is a walking time bomb because all these states they created, the boundaries, all the boundaries of all the states are in contention. Because Baba, we are like people who woke up from sleep after they have, you know, left our land. We now woke up and we now continue from the, you know, from the rubbles of our land, forgetting to trace back.
It's called, confused identity. It's like we're having identity.
Confused. Exactly. How can we continue from where Bangladesh kept us? We don't know that we have to go back and say, no, this man is a criminal. This man is a dictator, a military dictator that stole power, created states for me and you. And we came out and we went into democracy. And we don't know that the first thing we have to be thinking is, no, this is not where we were. This criminal. And all these people, they are still receiving pension. And look at all look at the system they created for us. Look at the justice system. Baba, because for me, I don't think they should be forgiven. They should never be forgiven. See the one that comes president. See all the land. You know that place, he has that body law. That's the most expensive. You know how much? Oh, God. Who are the original owners of the land?
Half of the place, people have been chased away from their lands. And then
from their land,
they are allocated to the politicians and their families and their friends and all of that.
And they are making laws that no, all lands belong to government. Forget that something. Before the government, who were the ancestors? Yeah. How can you change? That means my ancestors fought for their space, only for their space now to be taken away by people like this, this criminal. And we are watching and we are saying it's the law. Which law? Which democracy? Forget democracy. All this, we need to write it. We don't have to write this list, Baba, so that we forever be ringing that bell that this man, his name is in this list, he's a criminal. So that we start to ring the bell for the next generation. We will be living problem for the next generation. They will be more confused than we are. I think we are the last set of people that we remember that
the originality of our ancestors.
The originality, yes. Because all these Gen Zs that are coming, they are super confused. But they are super confused. If you don't teach them, if you don't know what is the ancestral names of all these places. Baba, oh God. Oh God, time is going. Baba.
A lot of us need to actually seek power as well. I think if there's any self-preservation that is so important, if we all want to be really honest, a lot of us need to seek power. We need to hijack power from our respective regions. We must, because the kind of people that are in power in these regions, especially
but you see
they are weak men. They are weak.
But you see the ones that took power, the ones that went from Labour Party, are they not the ones that just enter APC? But how can we do it now again?
No, I'm not talking about them. I said those ones that we have now, these are selfish weak men. You see, most of us who know,
I'm telling you, I'm right.
Yeah, most of us who know history. It's unfortunate too. Most of us are outside the country. Do you understand? We have been chased out of that place.
Let's not just be right. It is the people versus this criminal. Nigeria has been captured. It is the people now. We must form ourselves. We must form ourselves as a people and divide ourselves by our ancestral name. I know that the Yoruba is Odua land. The people of, let's say for instance, the Oniru family of Odua land, or so. These names, the Eba people used to be a republic or what's it called? You know that?
Before everyone else.
You read the book here, yes. We must go back to those history and bring them back and re-enlighten the people now before this era finish, because these people are transferring this criminality to their children, and they will go to any length to stop all of this from coming out to life.
So
everybody has a name, an ancestral name. Okay, Baba.
Thank you very much for chipping in. Okay, you have a very good one, Baba. Yeah. So I have another caller. I believe. Hello.
Maiyegun.
Yes, sir.
The field marshal.
Yes, sir. Emma. How are you, sir?
Well done. Well done. Long time. I'm just a lucky person, a lucky head today.
Well, I am lucky to have you too.
By getting you online.
It's been a long time, I know.
How is family?
We thank God, though, we are still here, pushing it.
To God be the glory.
Amen. Thank you. Please.
Maiyegun, let me go straight to the point. Just like as the former callers said. Are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear, all of us.
Okay. You see what is happening in that country. Maiyegun, you makes me at times I will be sharing lacrimation, honestly, my brother. You see somebody like this, our brother, this Oga Dele.
Yes.
Person like him is like we are from a frying pan to jumping inside to fire in that country. Person like Dele Farotimi doesn't need to suffer all this rubbish, gopus and repus that are keeping on his neck now this period. Because why? He exposed Nigerians. And that is what it's supposed to be. Because these people in that country, they have messed up the citizens of that country. We are nothing again in that country. That is why it is good for us, to every one of us, to look for your father's name, answer your name. Answer your go to your tribe. Check
bear their own papa name.
Yes, bear your father's name. It's okay, because what is happening in that country, my brother, I think there was a day, I think that was last year, when I made a mention, I made some comment. Maybe that comment is not that good to make in this platform. So, but it's equivalent of the first caller that made that calls this evening or this afternoon. You understand?
Yeah.
Is because let me be open. It's because all these politicians in that country, we are not following them the way we're supposed to follow them. As Adibin, we are following them. You do this, and then we show you the color.
Yeah.
If it turns to be to wipe you out, we wipe you out. It's because we are not doing it. That is why they have the gut of doing all this rubbish. Okay, look at this Babangida of issue, or how can I put it? OBJ himself.
Yeah.
Or the animal of Middle Belt. When I was listening to some of interviews and some areas that he usually makes some comments. I mean, Yakubu Gowon.
Yeah.
I call himself General Yakubu Gowon. These two people, including Babangida, they're the people that destroy that country. Honestly, I've been listening to some comment of Yakubu Gowon. I never even one day heard where Yakubu pleaded this country, because he was the one that kept this country in this way.
Who started it? Now.
Yes, after him, then followed by OBJ. After OBJ, you now talk of Babangida. These three people, Maiyegun, if I were to speak, these three people, we're supposed to bring them in public, naked, all of them, call the children, all the whole children of Nigeria, starting from 10 years downwards, they spit on their penis, spit on their face. These three people, I'm telling you the fact. I never even one day see where this Yakubu Gowon pleaded for the mercies of this country, for the mistake that he did. Look at somebody that has black skin. You went Ankara with your brother, with your black brother, your black skin brother, to make an agreement. And you people have finished the agreement in a normal way. You now turn out to be listening to British High Commission. It's not what brings all this problem. It's what causes all this rubbish that we are facing in that country.
Still dying today.
They're up to 90 years now. Him and the OBJ, they're up to 90 years. But I never have one day see any of them stand in public, pleaded for this for the masses of this country. Instead,
Emma,
Maiyegun,
let me take one more and we can call it a half.
Thank you very much.
Later, okay?
Thank you very much. Keep on doing your work. You understand?
Thank you very much as well. Okay, you stay safe.
Thank you very much, my brother.
So I think we've come closer to the end of this segment on the brunch time. I'll take this call from Victor. He's been like repeatedly, persistently calling. So we only have just about 5 minutes. Can you make use of 3 of that, Baba?
Yes, Maiyegun. Thank you so much, my brother. Good day, brother.
Good day.
How's your family? I hope everybody's fine.
Well, we are very well, except for the weather.
To God be the glory.
So,
what is happening to Dele Farotimi is it's an exemplary of things that have been happening to a lot of good people in Nigeria that nobody knows. It's just that
50 million for what? That's what is ringing in my head, Victor. Like 50 million for what? 50 million big for what?
Yeah, for civil offense, even if it's an offense, defamation. Defamation of character is not a criminal offense.
It is not.
It's civil. All you need to do is go to the civil court and sue the person, and then you claim for damages. That's all. Even if that was the case.
Damages they will even ask you to pay to defamation is not 50 million. Talk less of you having to get a bail. What the heck? This so-called system that is fighting him.
These so-called legal luminaries, they are just making foolery of themselves and the entire nation. You understand me? They think they are the only one that read law. That no other person, even we being the layman in the eyes of the law that we are, at least we read the basis of law. We still have an idea about what it entails. The fundamental human rights. That was the basic laws that we read in those days at school, and even up to some certain level. So this they just keep trying to use their jargons to mesmerize the rest of the citizens as if we are fools. I called some time ago into this your program, and I was telling you, I said, look, the real problem that we have in Nigeria are the judges. The judges, the custom, and the police, they are the ones that killed Nigeria.
Honestly.
You understand me? The police started doing theirs when they discovered that when they arrest criminals, they bring them to before the law court. The court will free them and collect money from them and then free them up.
Yeah.
So the police then, instead of them doing their job properly, now they now say, well, if I take this criminal to the court now, they're going to leave him over there. I might as well collect whatever is giving me now, and then instead of me dying in the process. That was how all this nonsense started. You understand? You see, the issue of
we now have a system that is for the highest bidder.
Of course,
putting
of course.
In the hands of somebody accused of defamation, right? Being sued by the police, and the man that looted 110 billion naira from a state is like a boss. They are singing his praise. It was like the one who took
it's horrible.
What are we going to tell our children for real if they ask us?
Horrible. In fact, I'm ashamed of calling myself a Nigerian, honestly. When this, they don't know that other people are watching these things from the international scene. They are making foolery, disgracing Nigeria as a country, disgracing with the citizens.
And then they will turn around and be asking us to be patriotic. How can you be patriotic to a country like this?
Okay. Is it not the country that treats you right that you have to, die for, that you be patriotic for? The country that is treating you like a nobody, that's treating you like shit. Can you imagine somebody like Dele Farotimi be treated this way? Imagine what does the common man stand? What stand does the common man
Your guess is
have
as
in
good as
Nigeria
mine.
to get justice? You understand me? Just because they knew this man is supporting Peter Obi, is supporting labor obedient movement. It's why they want to ridicule him. It's why they want to make sure they shut him up. Nothing else. But these people, whatever their system is that they will do everything to cajole you, to make sure that they buy you over. And if you are not accepting what they are offering you, they try to destroy you.
With you.
Exactly. That is what is happening to Dele Farotimi right now, because they know the guy is not corrupt. There's no other thing they can do to him other than to soil his name and try to disgrace him. But they're just making a very big mistake. They're making him more popular by this nonsense.
Yes.
You understand? Because everybody, it's a nice off. Everybody is seeing it that they're just victimizing him unnecessarily. The guy even have a hint of this thing. He pre-warned us that this is going to happen to him. We that were following him all along knew that this was coming. Because the guy already
kept saying it that I'm not going to run away from them. If they think I'm going to leave this country, I won't.
Yeah.
He saw it coming. He knew. And they played straight into his hands. They did. Because to them, even after discovering all of after all of us finding this out, what are we going to do? What are you going to do about it? Nothing. We rule this place.
No, really. I pray they don't allow anything to happen to him. They don't make the mistake of harming him. They will know that Dele Farotimi is not. They will all become Dele Farotimi in that country. They will know that this guy is not standing alone. He's speaking for us.
No wonder I was supposed to be brought to court tomorrow. Now they had to bring him today and freed him today. If he can, if he can finalize his bail condition, so he can go now. Exactly.
They try to save face. They know that even Dele alone will defeat them in the law court because their basis has no. I mean, their claims has no basis. You understand me? There is no power in law for them.
They have shot themselves on the foot to start with. Yeah, I don't think, maybe they try to test the water. That is why Afe Babalaole is not the one suing him. I'm so surprised. They said Afe Babalaole had a case in EKiti, right? That they've been summoning Dele Farotimi to come. It didn't come. We asked them to show us the case and the case file. They couldn't produce anything that shows that the Afe Babalaole had a case in court. Nothing. Until they kidnapped him to EKiti. And he became Commissioner of Police versus Dele Farotimi. Where is the case that Afe Babalaole had against him? Where is the bench warrants to arrest him because he didn't know this? Where are all those things? Nothing.
No, the point is that Dele himself once said, he once made reference to a case that was involving landed property. So landed property, I think somewhere around that the Juleki area or something like that. That this Afe Babalaole of a man or a lawyer or whatever, I don't know how to classify him, once got involved and how the case was thrown out.
Yes.
So I think the guy is coming for personal vendetta. It's nothing about.
Well, it's not good enough to sue him directly. Why is he using police? Now,
this is the point.
Is the police IG versus Dele Farotimi, not Afe Babalaole versus Dele Farotimi.
That's where the police will shoot themselves on the foot because Dele is going to come out and sue them later on for damages for taking his freedom away unnecessarily for no ground. Because this guy has no legal basis for doing what they are doing to him right now. He's not a criminal. They're putting handcuffs on his hand. That's what I was saying in the picture. So I mean, Nigeria, man, you can forget about that country. I'm ashamed of calling myself.
Thank you so much. And
thank you, bro.
I am going to bring more on this matter later this evening. I even have a clip of a former judge, Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, repeating and saying the same thing about the corrupt judiciary that we have in Nigeria. This is a former justice of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to start with, right? Later, Victor, enjoy the rest of the afternoon, okay? And then you have a good answer, right?
My regards to the family.
And to yours too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So this is where I am going to draw the curtains this afternoon. Okay, go get ready for later this evening. We are not reading this night. We'll be reading again tomorrow afternoon, which is to conclude this reading. If you haven't gotten your own copy, I advise you to please do. Okay, and if you already have a copy and you have read the book, we can still read together. We are continuing from chapter 6 tomorrow. And which is going to now take us to the juicy and the juiciest parts of the whole book. What triggered the powerfuls in Nigeria to decide to misuse their influence and power in Nigeria as exposed by Dele Farotimi. I am going to see you later. Thank you so much for sharing or spending your afternoon with me. When I come back later this evening, we shall address other issues too. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your noon.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun Diary.
ọ̀rẹ́ ará ìlú.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Bó bá ṣe eré, àní Maiyegun máa wí.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré, wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Maiyegun Diary, diary politico.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Maiyegun.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Ẹ farabalẹ̀ sẹ́ o kẹgọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Àní Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ tó dódòdó.
Maiyegun Diary na him be number one.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí Facebook.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bọ́ bàbá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Pẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Kí gómìnà kówó jẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọlọ́pàá tí ń darí bá.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Òpùrọ́ olóṣèlú.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ o, Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀, Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Oníkanṣá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, fáwọn ará ìlú tó gbé wọn débẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní má ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Kì máa yí ṣe eré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Kì máa yí ṣe eré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Ẹni bá ti lè lẹ́bọ̀ lẹ́rù o, ọmọ bá dèrò kàṣàyè tú wọn síta.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Tẹnitẹni ọmọ Maiyegun ọ̀rẹ́ ara ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni mo fọlọ́hún sọ ẹ̀ bá kìlẹ́bù. Lóòótọ́ olódodo ìlú ọ̀tá ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni ìwọ ṣá máa ń ṣọ́ra kò sì mọ́ bẹ̀rù.
bọ́tà ń lè rí bóníṣègùn lé káwọn mọ̀mọ́ fi ṣera wọn ni ó ti dẹrùn tí wọn ò gbọ́dọ̀ sè mọ́bẹ̀. èèpo ọ̀bọ̀lọmọ bá dérò tàjẹ́ ò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ ó ti jọba lórí abínú ẹni kò sì mọ́ fòyà. àìsíwọ́lu ní ẹnìkẹ́ ìgbódì ẹyin lábàrá o ó kó ẹni tó bá dán o àkàmù. Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lúwẹ̀ túnra kì. Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lúwẹ̀ túnra kì o. ẹni bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dèrò òní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lúwẹ̀ túnra kì. Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lúwẹ̀ túnra kì. ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ òní fi wọ́n níran.